was a great.
We're going to call the meeting to order. Monday, February the 7th, 2005. The invocation this evening will be by the pastor, Bishop Scott. Is he in? Bishop Scott? Followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by the Police Explorers and Councilman Losner. Would you all please stand?
Let us pray. Eternal God, our Father, we come to you now with our heads and humble hearts, giving you thanks for all of your blessings that thou hast bestowed upon us. We pray, O God, that thou wilt grant these commissions with great wisdom. They can make wise decisions to govern our community. And also bless the men and women that are in Iraq. Cover them with your blood. It's in Christ's name we pray. Serve in prayer. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Please join with me in pledging allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Thank you. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mrs. Bell? Here. Ms. Garner? Here. Mr. Hodge is absent. Mr. Losner?
Here.
Mr. Porter?
Here.
Mrs. Waldman is absent. Mayor Warren?
Here. Any additions, deletions, or deferrals?
Yes, Mayor. Item 5D on the consent agenda, we're requesting to be deferred.
5D.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question about another item.
Mr. Losner?
Your item, Mayor, the appointments to the Planning and Zoning Board.
Yes, sir.
I've been in conversations with staff, and I believe that under the Code Revision Committee, we've been looking at perhaps reevaluating and revising the role of the Planning and Zoning Board and looking at what some of the other municipalities are doing. I was wondering, Mayor, if you would consider deferring the appointments for 30 days pending some recommendation from the Code Revision Committee as to some potential changes that might be coming there, rather than bring these new people on board and begin to orient them for a board that may or may not remain as its present status. I think that would only encompass maybe one more meeting where they would risk having tie votes or not a quorum. Is that correct, Charles?
There are 4 members on the board now, which is the quorum.
It constitutes a quorum.
That constitutes a quorum.
But potentially that only represents a risk of one meeting, a 30-day deferral.
We have one more this week, and then we have 2 per month. So then we have another one. I don't know that anybody appointed tonight would be at the Wednesday meeting. So then there will be another one in the first week of March. So I think it'd be 2 meetings.
Mr. Laws, I have no problem with deferring it.
Thank you, Mayor.
For 30 days, no problem at all. Any objections? Any objections for the 30-day deferral? Thank you, Mr. Laws. Anything else?
Thank you, Mayor.
Special presentations. Presentation of a check by Congressman Mario Diaz-Balart for the city project.
You want more of mine?
I'm not going to laugh much about that. I'll be 44 in 2 weeks.
You're doing great. So he's got money.
Congressman Mario Diaz-Balart. We are honored to welcome you again to the city of Homestead. Our community has gone through a lot over the last several years, but despite the devastation of Hurricane Andrew, today Homestead is a vibrant and growing community. We are very proud of our city and all that we have achieved in a relatively short period of time. And Homestead is continuing to grow by leaps and bounds. 14,500 new homes will be constructed in the city by the year 2008-2009, bringing 40,600 new residents and a considerable number of commercial ventures. Congressman, we are especially grateful to you for the work and the help that you've provided the city of Homestead. Your leadership in Washington and the assistance you provide us day in and day out has been invaluable. And in just the past 2 years, as a result of your tireless efforts, the city has secured $1.8 million for several critically important community projects. And this is the most significant amount of dollars the city has received from the federal government since Hurricane Andrew. And as you recall, Congressman, back during those years, we got $10 million from the federal government. They asked us to repay them the loan after the hurricane. But we had some help there, and we got the loan forgiven. But with your help, we have secured funds for the East-West Bus Connector service that will complement the Miami-Dade County busway and provide service to a large portion of Homestead's population that has limited transportation opportunities. The project will promote intermodulism, encourage citizens to use alternative modes of transportation, relieve congestion. Through your efforts, we have secured funds to help renovate and expand the popular William Dickinson Senior Citizen Center that provides today a one-stop shop for health and wellness services for the senior citizens in South Miami-Dade County. And through your leadership, we have secured critically important funding for water and wastewater infrastructure improvements to meet the needs of our growing city. Congressman Diaz-Balart, it is an honor to have you here today. And you have certainly been our advocate, our champion, and our dear friend. So thank you again for your leadership in Congress and for everything you have done on behalf of the citizens of Homestead. We salute you, we congratulate you, and we honor you today for your presence.
It is indeed with great satisfaction that I can come here today, one more time, and to present some very well-earned federal money for the city of Homestead. And I just want to make something very clear. I take the credit. The mayor has given me the credit, and the wonderful commission has given me credit for bringing this money from Washington. And do I have a little bit to play in this, a little bit of a role? Okay, I have a little bit of a role. But I think it's very important that everybody understand that the reason I'm able to do that is because the mayor, the manager, every single member of this commission has done an incredible job for the city of Homestead. And we share a relationship of trust, of friendship, a working relationship that has allowed us, for the first time in many years, to frankly bring back to Homestead its fair share and what it is due to the city of Homestead. So with that, and with great gratitude for your leadership, for the leadership of the manager, the leadership of every single one of you, the vice chairman and the members of this commission, I am here to then again present these checks. I am also hoping, and Kurt and I were talking, Mr. Mayor, you know that every time that you go to Washington, it is a huge asset in helping me do my job. So I'm hoping to see you up in Washington real soon. So thank you. And with that, we've had a good year, ladies and gentlemen. We're bringing back 3 checks for the city of Homestead. And with that, just one check. First check, Mr. Mayor, for the city of Homestead, for the Homestead water and wastewater infrastructure for $250,000. the second check, also obviously to the City of Homestead for another $250,000, again for the Homestead East-West Bus Connector Service, and the Mayor's mentioned how important this is to Homestead and to everybody in the county. And again, another $250,000. And last but not least, for the Dickinson Senior Center, again, a check for $125,000 for the City of Homestead. And again, I repeat it, it's because of the efforts and this relationship that I have with this incredible commission and this incredible city leadership that makes this all possible. And we will continue to work together to make sure that Homestead gets what the people in this town, in this great city, deserve. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Council come forward and take some pictures real quick. Just coming down, take pictures.
No.
Took the long way.
You might as well.
We're getting quite a collection over here.
Yeah, we have to do something about that.
Mario, let's take a hug.
Right back. Didn't realize you were back.
See you.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Keep it up. Bye-bye. Take care. Nice to meet you.
Bet your dad
Don't apologize. We got money.
my oldest days.
The second agenda item is the presentation of a certificate of appreciation to Kalia Evelyn, Councilwoman Garner, and Councilman Hodge.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm so excited. Someone said the other day that our Mayor's Youth Council is the cream of the crop, and it wasn't apparent, but they were right. Governor Jeb Bush and First Lady Columba Bush recently announced the winners of the 4th Annual Black History Month Essay Contest during their annual Black History Month reception. I'm very proud to announce that Homestead's own Youth Council Mayor, Ms. Kalia Evelyn, was this year's high school winner. Her essay was entitled Apples of Gold. Kalia, can you come up here? If your mom could come up too. The essays were judged on the students' inspirational and personal content that shared how an African-American educator impacted their life. There were over 4,500 entries to this contest, and she was our winner. I'm so excited. She was awarded a 4-year tuition scholarship and a Hewlett-Packard computer. Wow! Wanted to recognize her and let everyone know her accomplishments, and I have your essay if you want to read part of it.
Okay,
I'll read
a little part.
She's an excellent speaker.
Of course.
And if you want to see her, she's on myflorida.com. Her essay is on there, along with a picture of her with the governor.
A little part. I won't keep anybody too long. My name is Kalia Evelyn. My essay is entitled Apples of Gold. If trees had legs, they would be pursuing me, for I have blossomed so much, I am the envy of the garden. In each waking moment, I experience the presence of writing. Words are ecstasy, my form of allowing my thoughts to kiss similes so deeply, metaphors get jealous. Society accepts writing as a mere means of articulation, but writing is existence. Langston Hughes taught me how to feel. Nikki Giovanni taught me how to see. But it was Miss Kifumbu Holloway who taught me how to express. Thank you.
It's me. I just want to say something. A little birdie told me that this 4-year scholarship was to any college of your choice.
Fabulous.
Isn't that wonderful?
Fabulous.
Congratulations.
Fabulous.
$4,500 applicants?
4,800.
48? Unbelievable.
Find a copy statewide.
That's a big deal. Sharon's going to bring me up in here. Okay. I know. She speaks.
The next agenda item is the presentation of the Employee of the Quarter to Mr. Lee C. J., owner of the J. Johnson Funeral Home. Councilman Hodge.
We're going to ask Mr. Johnson to come forward. All right. And is Ms. Brown here? She didn't come. Okay, there she is. Again, we have received overwhelming response in our Employer of the Quarter. And basically what we do with the Employer of the Quarter, we ask that the businesses within the city of Homestead, employees to submit a short letter or essay on why their employer should be the Employer of the Quarter. And the idea is to promote our local employers to let everybody know how well the city of Homestead take care of their employees and what we have going on. There's a few perks involved. We give the employer and the person that submits their writing to us dinner or lunch at Ruby Tuesdays. Also, our local papers do a write-up and ad and give them some free advertisement, and to let the community know how well they're doing and how great their employees are. They're usually they're decided by a vote, and the individuals that we have chose to do the voting for us is the economic portion of the Chamber of Commerce. And we email all the letters out to them, and when they have their meetings, they pass them around and they vote on them and they send them back to us. And we want to thank them for participating in this and helping us out in deciding the one that deserves this recognition. Again, we receive a lot of good letters and a lot of rewarding benefits for individuals who submit their letters. But this time we have J. Johnson Funeral Home as our winner. And I'm going to ask Mrs. Brown if she would read her letter.
Good evening. I feel that my employer, Mr. Lee C. J., the owner of the J. Johnson's Funeral Home, deserves this award simply because he is truly an amazing individual. Mr. J works tirelessly along with his employees to ensure that the clients we serve are served to the utmost of our professional abilities. From the moment I first encountered Mr. J, he was a tremendous source of inspiration, strength, guidance, and courage. He continues to possess those characteristics and more. Mr. J is a humble person, respectable to all persons, and he has this astounding commitment to the families we are privileged to serve. His primary concern is satisfying our clients while they endure one of the most difficult periods in this life. If he is able to make their burdens easier to bear, then he feels he has honored his dedication to the funeral service industry. In addition, he has made contributions to various churches, and organizations in this community. The staff of J. Johnson's Funeral Home and the J Funeral Home in Perrine, Florida, appreciates and loves our Mr. J. Although Mr. J can be somewhat difficult to his employees, we are tremendously appreciative because we can truly admit that we are better at our occupational responsibilities because of his leadership abilities. When a family thanks us, hugs us for a job well done, or years later we encounter that family and they remember the services we have rendered, we can thank Mr. J for his diligence in educating us about the professionalism, simple courtesies, and the dedications to the families we serve.
Very well written letter. And we first would like to present you with this plaque, honoring you as the Employer of the Quarter. And compliments of Ruby Tuesdays. We have gift certificates for you for submitting, and you for being the winner. Thank you. Thank you. And we just want to also we want to ask that we want to make this program grow and be bigger. So if anyone that's out there that want to participate in their donations, we're going to ask you for your donations and it's just once a quarter. And also we want to ask that we have participation from all the employers and employees throughout the community. I mean, it's something that is well deserving to let people know in the city of Homestead we have great employees and we have great employers, and we have that relationship and that family relationship throughout our business community. Thank you and appreciate your time.
Item 4D is the presentation of the Officer of the Month Award to Reserve Officer Sean Fletcher. Councilman Porter.
Mr. Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor, City Council, Mr. City Manager, I'm Lieutenant Tom Foglia with Homestead Police. We have Chief Al Roll, Captain Scott Kennedy, and this is our Officer of the Month for November, Reserve Officer Sean Fletcher. A little bit about Sean. Anyone who may be new in the community, Sean used to be one of our city councilmen. The former city councilman, he works for Light. How about now? A little better? He works for Florida Power and Light. Sean is one of those reserve officers that obviously has a full-time career, and he joined our department after working with our department. He used to be our police commissioner. He was working hand in hand with the department as a city councilman. So after time went by, last year he went to the police academy. On his own time, outside with the approval of FP&L, did I believe almost 800 hours, and he graduated late last year. And he's been in training. It requires 40 hours a month in your initial training period. Well, during the November race, we had a lot of our reserves officers working out there with us. Sean got off duty from the race, and he went over to the Marathon gas station. If you're familiar, that's by the Villages of Homestead. Sean was off duty, walked up to the business, and observed an individual behind the counter, another guy on the other side of the counter, and the clerk with her back to the door. He became suspicious. Then he saw one of the individuals banging on the cash register. Sean realized that he possibly had a robbery in progress. Definitely looked that way to him. He wound up identifying himself as a police officer. It was, in fact, an armed robbery in progress. He was able to get both subjects on the ground. One of the individuals kept trying to move around. He kept shouting at him. He was able to get back to the doorway to get cover. He called the police departments. Now backup units are en route. One of the individuals
started coming towards the door. Again, he yelled at that individual. Then that individual went around an area where he couldn't see him. That individual wound up escaping out the back. What Sean didn't realize, originally there was 4 subjects that originally went in to do this robbery. He couldn't see the other 2. He kept the one guy at gunpoint till the backup officers got there. The officers set up a perimeter. We had a couple detectives find one of the other subjects in the area. Also, great job by our detective division. They actually got confessions from these 2 guys. They arrested the other 2 individuals, all for armed robbery. And I will tell you, I've been here 25 years, and the chief longer than me, Kennedy the same amount of time as me, and I've never walked in on armed robbery in progress. So here's Sean, just out of the academy, going to buy a snack or whatever, and walks in on this and just did one heck of a job. You can imagine, with not having much police experience except from the police academy, and he did ride with us quite a bit. I can just tell you it's an incredible feat. We're thrilled to have him on board here. We'd like to thank FP&L for allowing Sean to become a reserve officer with our department. So as you can see now why he received the Officer of the Month for November. Great honor, we give you this plaque, presented to Officer Sean Fletcher for being selected Officer of the Month, November 2004. Great job.
Well, Sean and I are very good friends from earlier days, growing up as kids together, and obviously as serving on the council together. And it is with great pleasure, Mayor and the council members, that I have given the honor to stand here and give this to Sean. As a friend, as a fellow colleague on the council, and as now a reserve officer serving our community in a very well-deserved capacity. One of the things that I really want to thank the community, the business community that stepped up and really made this a very gracious gift for these officers that do the job and put themselves in harm's way on a day-to-day basis. We've got over $400 worth of gratitude that we can give Officer Fletcher tonight from the business community, and I would say that is a substantial, I would consider, award in addition to the plaque and the exposure. But here, let me read to you. We've got the City Attorney, Weiss, Sirota, Hoffman, Pastora, Geddes, Cole, Beninsky, $100. First National Bank of South Florida's $50 savings bond. TIB Bank of Chrome Avenue, $50 savings bond. Tony's Sub and Grill, free meal of choice. Ferguson's Jewelry's a $75 gift certificate. Ruby Tuesdays, $50 gift certificate. Global Technology Partners Incorporated, $50 gift certificate, $50 cash. Logo Store on 29790 Old Dixie Highway is a $50 gift certificate. Paul Kruger of Evolution Web Incorporated is given a $25 gift certificate to Radio Shack. And these officers are well deserved of these awards. And Mr. Fletcher, it gives me great pleasure to hand them over to you. And thank you very much for a job well done.
I'm humbled tonight as I accept this award from a group of my peers who have a lot of time in this industry. I'll tell you that being on the job for 9 months, you definitely do not realize how fast you have to react in a situation when it comes upon you like that. I want to thank my training advisors from the Academy, my friends here for the additional training they gave me over the years, and the fellow officers who came to my backup. They were there in less than a minute, and I can tell you, I was calling for them every second. Thank you very much, everyone. You have something else on the agenda, Mr.
Mayor, I think at this point in time, we're going to pay the reserve officers that $1 a year that they've all so graciously worked for.
Go ahead.
And we got a bunch of little small checks. Not the big ones like we just saw, but very small checks, $1.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, Mayor, members of the council. Captain Scott Kennedy with the City of Homestead Police Department. Once a year, we take this time to pay tribute and honor and thanks to the many men and women of our Homestead Police Department Reserve Program that put in a countless number of hours each year to supplement the police officers here with the City of Homestead. We presently have 35 police reserve officers in our program. It's probably one of the larger police reserve programs for an agency our size within Dade County. They're fully sworn police officers with arrest powers. They attend a 792-hour police academy in addition to holding their own full-time jobs on the side. Many of these men and women have full-time jobs that they're really not interested in becoming full-time officers, but they want to provide service to the citizens of Homestead and the City of Homestead Police Department by donating and volunteering their times each and every month for a 12-month period each year. And in the 35 officers that we have with it, just to give you an example of how many hours they put in, we put in over 7,000 hours for the City of Homestead. Each and every one of those officers only receive $1 a year, and that's mainly just to cover them for workers' comp issues and so forth. In addition to holding their full-time jobs and attending the police academy 4 days a week, or actually 3 nights a week and 1 full day on Saturday, for now it's approximately an 11.5-month process. They hold full-time jobs, maintain their families, and their families have to really sacrifice to get them through this initial program. If that's not enough, once they successfully graduate from the academy, we tax them with committing themselves to 40 hours a month for the first 6 months through a training period. After that, once they successfully complete that training program, they provide us minimum of 16 hours, and I would say we're probably averaging about 24 hours each minimum from each officer each month. It varies with the different officers and the time that they can do, but we get quite a number of hours and services out of these individuals for a very low cost. And many of you have probably met them because we try to implement them into the residential areas to meet the public, to provide extra patrol services. They provide extra services in supplementing our uniformed patrol officers to 2-man units. Once they successfully complete the reserve program, the first 6 months of training, they're trained to where they can go out and handle the calls on their own solo assignments. Some of them actually do have the desire to someday become a full-time police officer. With the growth of the city and the expectations that are coming upon us rather rapidly, we're hoping that the majority, if not all, that have that desire successfully reach that goal. They provide a lot of services during the NASCAR events each November. Some of these special details, undercover surveillances, reverse narcotics operations, sting operations, saturated traffic patrol enforcement, and just a number of different things. Whenever we call on them, if they don't have the time, a lot of times they have to juggle their schedules to do it, and they do it without any complaints. So we're here tonight to honor them for that, and I'm going to call them, if I can call them in right now. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead and stack up front. If I could, just to expedite things, it's a rather large agenda tonight. If we hold off the applause, I'm going to call them out alphabetically to come up and receive their plaques, and then they'll restack in the formation where they are now. Councilman Porter has a few words he'd like to say to them. To receive their plaques again, if you would, just until the very end of it, when I'll announce when we've handed out the last one. Hold the applause till then. Yeah, I know. We're going to call out Reserve Lieutenant L.P. Garcia. He's been a reserve officer with the City of Homestead for 19 and a half years. He's the longest standing member within the reserve program. Lieutenant Garcia, please hold off on the applause. They appreciate it. Sergeant Danny Formosa, he's been with the city. He started actually with us full-time in '79. He's since retired, but he's maintained his status as a reserve sergeant with the City of Homestead. Jennifer Azevedo. Elvis Ackerman. Julio Alonzo. Walter Bryan here by chance? Sorry. John Buchanan. Eileen Calvo. Manny Figueroa. Sean Fletcher. John Frank. Eddie Galvez. Kenneth Hubbard. Robert Landon. David Mata. Angel Nazario. Ricky Pierre. Jimmy Perneda. Jimmy's been with our department since, I think the city started back in 1913. Jimmy's been with the department since the 1970s. He's retired from our department, but still in 2005 he's an active reserve police officer, so he's got a number of years under his belt. George Reyes. Antonio Tanner. Joe Tedeschi. Joe Valdez. And Luis Zavaleta. Just for some history, presently we have 80 sworn police officers with the City of Homestead as far as full-time officers. We have 35 reserve officers with the program. At this time, please take the time to really give them a standing ovation if you don't mind. They've done an awesome job over the year. Number of hours of service to the City of Homestead, and that's a well-deserved applause. Also, I'd like to, at this time, recognize two special individuals with our department. They're with our chaplain program. Chaplain Willie Scott here and Fred Crow. Ladies and gentlemen, these are two outstanding individuals that have spent numerous hours for 20 years now. They thought they were going to be able to sit down after this. They've spent numerous hours. They're on call all the time. They actually give us a great service, not only for families that are in need on a moment's notice, whether it's a death, serious injury situation. They also provide counseling and encouragement and stand by, a shoulder to lean on for officers at any given time. I can't thank them enough. I mean, the reserve officers themselves have 16 hours. I would say these gentlemen put in probably even more than 16 hours a month, although they don't have a reserve status minimum. But these guys do a great job. So, again, please thank them for a great job.
just say one thing. Captain Kennedy said most of it all. These guys allow our police department the ability to get the job done. If it weren't for these people, these men and women that stand up here now, I don't know how they would get it done. So, again, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for all that you do for us and continue up the good work. Hopefully we can create some positions and hire some of you guys on full time. Thank you.
He's welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Thank all of you. And spend your money wisely. Don't spend it all in one location. Next, we have the presentation of plaques to Carib Homes, Prime Homes, Lowell Homes, and Lennar Homes. Councilman Losner?
That was when the funeral left us seated there. I don't know if you know me.
I don't know it. Thank you, Mayor. I know it's been a long night already, but it's interesting with these two presentations, we get to take a look at the future of our community, and with the second, pay tribute to a long history of past service to our community. And for those of you who have paid attention to the development in our community over the last couple of years, and or who might watch, join the other billions of people around the world who watch these meetings on the internet every week. Well, they could be. You know that there's an ambitious expansion project for Campbell Drive running all the way from the Turnpike out to 137th Avenue, including not only four-laning, but a very lushly landscaped wide median strip, as well as turn lanes in both directions. And if there are representatives of Prime Home Builders, Lennar Homes, Carib Homes, and Lowell Homes present, I'd like to call them up and recognize them and make the announcement that in conjunction with those efforts, the expansion of Campbell Drive will be enhanced by their contribution in excess of $100,000 to provide that all of the utilities will be run underground, which will allow us to install throughout that segment of Campbell Drive, as is improved, the vintage style street lighting standard that's been adopted by the city, as well as a conduit for the future installation of a fiber optic ring, which will allow that commercial corridor all manner of internet and worldwide access through that fiber optic connection. And so many times we're led to believe that developer is a bad word in some cases, but this is an example of this community and the development community who have come to this last frontier in South Miami-Dade County, that we can work together for the mutual benefit and the enhancement of our community. So we'd like to present these plaques. Mayor and Council commends Prime Home Builders, Lennar Homes, Carib Homes, and Lowell Homes for their dedication and contribution to the improvements on Campbell Drive, which are slated to begin this year. So again, let's signify our acknowledgement of their contribution to the enhancement of our community.
Please, let's have order in here. If you want to speak, you come to the mic. We don't have that outburst in this chamber.
You have to hear me.
No, they're paying for that.
Thank you, Mayor. And would any of you like to come forward and Mike?
Listen, we don't have order. If not, I'll excuse you from the chamber.
So this This is not public comment. This to acknowledge the contribution of these builders to our community and the enhancement of Camel Drive. Again, thank you all. We look forward to a long relationship with all of you. Thank you. And my second and final presentation of the night, Mayor and Council, is to acknowledge the second oldest service organization in this community on its 80th anniversary this month. And in drafting this proclamation, I turned to a history of the Rotary Club of Homestead that was compiled about 20 years ago to obtain information and refresh my memory for this proclamation. It reminded me again that the history of the Rotary Club of Homestead is a chronicle of not only its own history, but the progress and growth and the history of our very community. And a stark reminder that just as today, as 80 years ago, that what builds a community are the efforts of civic-minded individuals who are here to build a community and to look toward the future. And in acknowledging the past contributions of the Rotary Club of Homestead, we are evidence of the future they built. And I'd like to ask, there are several members of the club here tonight, many of them current officers and directors and many past presidents from many years ago. And I'd like them to join me for the reading of the proclamation. So, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, Rotarians, please join me. Okay, I'm going to ask Randy Jones to stand right here with me, and we'll talk about his role in this presentation. All right, Tom, come on up. Okay. Whereas the Homestead Luncheon Club, sponsored by the Rotary Club of Miami, was organized on March 28, 1924. And whereas the membership of the club, composed of community and business leaders, became, in the words of one individual, a clearinghouse for community action for such projects such as water and sewer systems for Homestead, the Overseas Highway, the construction of the first Card-Sound Bridge, and all manner of civic efforts, including playground construction, labor, materials, and financial assistance to promote ideas, events, and projects for the benefit of Homestead and the surrounding area. And whereas, following several months of service to the community, the members of the Homestead Luncheon Club were advised, and I quote, "You have conducted yourselves as nearly like Rotarians as possible in everything but name. It will become your privilege to join in the work and services which Rotary International fosters." And whereas, according to one account, I want to deviate here and point out that the words used in speeches in 1924 must have had an entirely different meaning as they do today. Because according to one account, the men of the Homestead Luncheon Club, as women in those days were not allowed to join in Rotary, were successful in a young and lusty community where horseplay and practical jokes were part of the weekly club menu. But this lusty spirit carried over into a push for civic accomplishment by a group of young men who feel their responsibility to community and are ready and anxious to help solve their civic problems. And whereas on February 25, 1925, the Rotary Club of Homestead was presented with its charter and thus became for a time the southernmost Rotary Club in the continental United States. And whereas one of the most visible and enduring projects of the club is the planting of the stately and now historic royal palms along Chrome Avenue in 1925 and again following Hurricane Andrew. And whereas the Rotary Club of Homestead continues not only its civic involvement, but immeasurably provides for youth activities of our community, particularly its annual efforts on behalf of the Homestead Redland Girl Scouts and through its college scholarship program. And whereas this year marks not only the 80th anniversary of the Rotary Club of Homestead and the 20th year of its annual charity auction, and also the 100th anniversary this month of Rotary International, therefore, the Mayor and Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, do hereby proclaim Monday, February 7th, 2005 as Rotary Club of Homestead Day in Homestead. going to present this proclamation to the club through its longest-serving active member, Randy Jones, who has served and been an active member of the Rotary Club of Homestead since 1947 and can maintain continuous active membership. But just to show that our community service is a family affair in the city of Homestead, not only is Randy still involved, but his son Tom is a member, and his granddaughter Margaret is in the line of officers and is slated to be president of the club in 2 years. And although there's at least one other family that has you beat in continuous membership and generations in the club, I wouldn't know. You're the only one that's fortunate enough to have 3 generations at a time living to be involved in the club. And Randy, on behalf of the City of Homestead, I want to present you with this proclamation for your delivery to the club meeting on Wednesday, and commend you and all of the others who have come before us and those who are here today for their spirit of community service and service above self in this community. And congratulations. Thank you.
Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, city manager, congressman, and audience. I accept this proclamation on behalf of the current president, Rob Griffith, who is right here. But in doing the math, it came to my attention that I have been a member of the club, active member, for 58 years. And if you have a little dyslexia and turn that around, I also am the oldest man in the club. I'm 85, so 58 and 85. And Councilman Losner did mention that there are 3 active members of the Rotary Club now from the Jones family, but he is also a 4th generation member of Rotary, and I don't know which generation it would be, but it's going to be another generation coming along, very young. He could tell you who they are. There are 3 Paul Harris fellows, which means that in a few years they'll be old enough to be Rotary members. Just to tell you what the club does or has done, I had the 2004 figures sent to me by email late this afternoon, but unfortunately they didn't arrive, so I got a fax, and the fax does not have the total. It has a bunch of figures that you don't want him to read. But the year of 2003, this club in Homestead donated $43,125 for such things as scholarships awarded to local students, $23,525. And I want to compliment Mr. Losner on reading this proclamation, standing up here. It's rather fine print, no glasses. I'm using about a 12 font on my computer, and I can't read it with glasses. Local scouting, we sponsor the Girl Scouts and have spaghetti suppers. I'm sure many of you have been there. $3,500. Local youth programs, $2,800. National programs, $6,200. International programs, $7,100, which totaled $43,125 for the year 2003. Also, for your information, since 1985, this club has raised and dispersed over $500,000 to the needy. We do it through our club, through other clubs, and where they have national disasters such as they've had over in Asia and things of that type. Also, the Rotary Club is sponsoring an international polio program for the eradication of polio worldwide. Mr. Councilman, thank you for this proclamation.
Thank you. occurred to me, how many 85-year-olds are there who are looking for an email that never came? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lawson. Is there a motion for approval of the consent agenda with 5D deferred?
So moved, Mayor.
Moved by the Vice Mayor. Is there a second? Second by Councilwoman Garner. Any questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? If there's no objections, I'd like to, on the public hearing, to move up legislative matter, item number 4. We have in attendance a representative from the county, Margaret Silva from Durham, and Terry Manning from the Regional Planning Council regarding the Homestead Brownfield redevelopment area. Would you come forward, Mr. Stouts?
Just say DVD.
Conducting the public hearing for the CRA tonight will... The red light's on.
Okay.
Conducting the public hearing tonight for the CRA will be our staff person, Safia Belair.
I'm Safia Belair, the Community Redevelopment Agency Grant Specialist and future coordinator of the Brownfield Redevelopment Zone Program. This public hearing is conducted in accordance with Florida Statute 166.041, and notice of this hearing has been given in accordance with Florida Statute 166.041, Sections 3C2. A resolution to designate a Homestead Brownfield redevelopment zone is being considered. The resolution will be presented for adoption at the next City Council meeting on February 22nd, 2005. The caption of the resolution states, "A resolution of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, with attachment designating a geographic area within the City of Homestead as a brownfield area, also known as a brownfield redevelopment zone, for the purpose of environmental remediation, rehabilitation, and economic redevelopment, directing the city manager to notify the Florida Department of Environmental Protection of said designation, and providing for an effective date." A brownfield site is a property, the expansion, redevelopment, or reuse of which may be complicated by the presence or potential presence of hazardous substance, pollutant, or contaminant. This is associated with abandoned, inactive, or underused industrial or commercial property where actual or perceived environmental issues complicate expansion or redevelopment. A brownfield area is a broader region of one or more brownfield sites that has been designated by a local government through resolution. The city proposes to designate the entire Homestead Community Redevelopment area as a brownfield redevelopment zone. This boundary is in the red line shown on the map and is generally bound by US 1 to the east, Lucy Drive to the south, Redland Road to the west, and Northeast 9th Court to the north. Following the U.S. Brownfield Revitalization Act and Florida Brownfields Redevelopment Act, the City of Homestead proposes to designate a brownfield redevelopment zone with the same boundaries as the community redevelopment area and to create a brownfield redevelopment zone program. The brownfield program is designed to empower the community and stakeholders in economic redevelopment to work together to assess, safely clean up, and reuse brownfields. Miami-Dade County has 10 designated brownfield areas. The City of Miami, City of Opelika, the City of Miami Beach, they have also designated brownfield areas. By designating these areas, they have taken the first step to help property owners and developers secure financial incentives and regulatory benefits. The City of Homestead decided to identify the CRA as a brownfield redevelopment zone to encourage environmental cleanup, rehabilitation, and economic development within the areas of Homestead presumed to be complicated by the presence or potential presence of contaminants. Since the CRA is already designated for redevelopment, it is the natural transition to assign brownfields eligibility to that area. Once a brownfield redevelopment zone is designated, many benefits are made available to clean and redevelop a brownfield site. Some of the incentives available to clean and or redevelop a property located within a designated brownfield zone include the Miami-Dade Department of Environmental Resource Management waiving fees to review environmental assessment documents. Those now run $925. The federal income tax relief is available for cleanup costs. There's a state sales tax exemption on building materials purchased for the construction of a housing or mixed-use project. There are job creation refunds of up to $2,500 per new job. Low-interest loans available from the county to assess and clean up brownfields. There's liability protection for the person responsible for brownfield cleanup. There's also lender liability protection. And the city can apply for EPA grants like those to fund brownfield assessments, cleanup activities, and manage revolving loan funds. We also benefit from working partnerships with Miami-Dade County Durham, the Southeast Florida Regional Planning Council, and the Florida Department of Environmental Protection Agency. We have drafted a program brochure, and this will be finalized once our designation is approved. That will be made available to the public. Contrary to misconceptions, there's no implication of contamination for a brownfield site or a brownfield zone. That can only be determined through a Phase 1 or a Phase 2 environmental site assessment. The Homestead Brownfield Redevelopment Zone designation does not affect zoning or change property values. If a site is not contaminated, it will not be affected by the program, but may still take advantage of redevelopment incentives for the area. Sites perceived to be contaminated should be assessed. If contamination is found, the property owner will be guided by the city and county to clean up and rehabilitate options. The City Brownfield Redevelopment Zone Committee will review proposals for brownfield site cleanup and rehabilitation. The committee will also screen plans requiring state and federal involvement. Any property owner within the area proposed for designation may request in writing to have his or her property removed from the Brownfield Redevelopment Zone. The city shall grant that request. Letters should be addressed to Rick Statz, Director of the Community Redevelopment Agency, at 790 North Homestead Boulevard, Homestead, Florida 33030. I can also be contacted by phone for additional information. I'm at 305-224-4487, Sophia Bel Air. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. Any comments from council? Any comments?
Ask a question.
Mr. Porter?
Sophie, just one question. In the past, sometimes overlays of zones have discounted out the abilities for one zone to be effective. I know we found that out in some of our enterprise, and there shouldn't be any problem with this zone discounting any other zone, correct?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from council? This is a public hearing. Any comments from the audience? Mr. Rhodes?
Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council, my name is Fred Rhodes. I live at 101 Northwest 21st Street, Homestead, Florida. I'm just wondering how you can vote on something like this and pass it without notifying the property owners. I have a couple $1 million worth of land in this area. No one has sent me a notice of any kind. I read about it in the local paper. Someone says, well, it was in the Miami Herald. Well, I don't look at the Miami Herald to read about advertisements in Homestead, Florida. I think those advertisements should be in Homestead, but I think when you go into something of this magnitude, you need to send a registered letter to every property owner that's going to be affected by this. I read in the paper today that you don't have to belong to it. That if you want to rescind your property from it, you can do it. It said you had to write a letter to this gentleman back here. I don't know him, but I presume he's the one. I have my letters written. They're being typed now. They'll be mailed tomorrow, registered letters. And I just want to ask this council tonight, is this true that if I don't want to belong to this, that I don't have to belong to it, that my land won't be part of it? Because I don't want any part of it. I want to decide what I do with my land, not somebody from Washington, Miami, Tallahassee, or any place else. My land is zoned. I want to come before this council and this mayor and let you make the decision for me, not from somebody else. I just want assurance tonight that my land won't be involved if I send the proper letter, because that proper letter is going tomorrow.
Well, Mr. Rhodes, that's my understanding from the presentation that you can exclude your property from being designated in that zone. That's my understanding. Rick, you want to clarify that for Mr. Rhodes?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. If I receive a written letter that documents each property by folio number and or address, so that we can be absolutely certain which properties it is, Mr. Rhodes, they will not be part of the process.
Thank you. I'm going to be absolutely correct, because I'm going to send each one of them a copy of it.
Good.
It's going to be registered to you too, because I don't like being told what I've got to do with my land. I want to decide, and I want to let the mayor and the council of the city decide. You're above the planning and zoning board. As long as I got your word that I'm not involved with it, fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rhodes. This is a public hearing. Any other public input? Any other public comments? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Any final comments from the council? Mr. Stouts, any comments?
No, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Vote on that?
No.
Good.
Mr. Attorney, public hearings, ordinance, land use items. Item 6.1.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Please be advised that the following items on the agenda are quasi-judicial in nature. If you wish to comment on any of these items, please indicate the item number you would like to address when the announcement regarding the quasi-judicial item is made. An opportunity for persons to speak on each item will be made available after the applicant and staff have made their presentations on each item. All testimony, including public testimony and evidence, will be made under oath or affirmation. Additionally, each person who gives testimony may be subject to cross-examination. If you do not wish to either be cross-examined or sworn, your testimony will be given its due weight. The general public will not be permitted to cross-examine witnesses, but the public may request the council to ask questions of staff or witnesses on their behalf. The full agenda packet on each item is hereby entered into the record. Persons representing organizations must present evidence of their authority to speak on behalf of the organization. Further details of the quasi-judicial procedures may be obtained from the clerk. In accordance with Code Section 2-591, any lobbyist must register before addressing the council on any of the following items. At this time, council members must disclose any ex parte communications concerning any items on the agenda. At this time, the clerk will swear in any persons who wish to testify in any quasi-judicial item.
Stand and raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. May be seated.
Mr. Mayor, the first ordinance is a first reading of an ordinance of the City of Homestead, Florida, granting the request of BDG.
Could we have your undivided attention, please? We can't hear up here. Good.
It's first reading of an ordinance of the City of Homestead, Florida, granting the request of BDG Waterstone LLC for rezoning from AU Agricultural Use District to R1 One Family District. Also granting preliminary plat and site plan approval for Grove at Waterstone, a 7-acre site consisting of 40 single-family units located at the northwest corner of theoretical Southwest 304th Street and Southwest 137th Avenue as legally described in Exhibit A and providing for an effective date.
Is there a motion for first reading?
Move first reading.
Moved by Councilman Porter. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Hodge. Any initial comments from council? If not, I'll open the public hearing. Any comments from the audience? Any comments from the audience? Yes. Give us.
My name is Lana Ford. I live at 2141 North 38 Road, Homestead, Florida.
Is that on?
Is it on? Thank you. Lana Horde. I live at 2141 Northeast 38 Road, Homestead, Florida, 33033. I want this council to be aware that the property that's under question tonight for this replatting and rezoning is one of 5 properties that are within a meets and bounds survey of the Waterstone CDD Community Development District, which is also known as South Dade Ventures. There are 5 properties within that CDD that have been donated out of the CDD structure. They are not taxed for the infrastructure that was placed in the CDD, and they are completely outside of the district, but yet they are in the center of the district. So in effect, those who paid to put the Community Development District infrastructure in place, the 18-inch water mains, the electrical lines that come in and make connections to the main trunk lines, all of the $15 million that are going into Waterstone's infrastructure development benefits these 5 properties, yet they pay no tax and no assessment as part of the district. We will be challenging on a legal basis simply the formation of the district around 4 properties whose ownership were not asked if they wanted to be in a district or not whenever this happened. At the time the Community Development District was created, there were 5 different owners of the land that owned the majority of the district that did sign off on the interlocal agreements for the creation of the district in 2001. The 5 owners, of which one of these parcels is now on and which changed hands in 2004 and was bought by Waterstone LLC, were not included in that interlocal agreement. We intend to question whether these owners were even asked if the CDD district could be created around them or not, and if the CDD was created on shaky ground to start with because they did not do the correct notification of all the property owners and ask for their permission, because the statute 190 does require unanimous consent of the property owners in the district's approval before a taxing district or special tax district can be created around them. So as a whole, the community of Waterstone, of which I am only one representative, has expressed their displeasure at a number of community meetings that the CDD taxes that we pay and assessments that we pay are going to benefit landowners who are within our district parameters, but yet not within our district in taxing format. And we would ask that you consider denying the request to rezone this property to R1 because the infrastructure that makes it be able to support R1 development from AU agricultural use was paid for by a district that they are not within and have no party to. We also seriously question the creation of 5 turn lanes on Southwest 137th Avenue that were paid for through South Dade Ventures expenditures of our assessment money, 4 of which turn into these 5 properties that I'm noting to you. I have with me exhibits tonight that I'll be happy to share with the council and enter into the record that show this exceptional portion within the boundary surveys as part of the interlocal agreements. It was a very surprising piece of information to us as we dug deeper into this. And we would just ask that you be very careful in the future when these community taxing districts are created
and make sure that these kinds of things don't happen anymore, because it's the proverbial henny penny story where you didn't help grow the grain, you didn't help grind the wheat, you didn't help bake the bread, but now you want some of it to eat. And the developers that are doing this are using the name Waterstone as if they were part of the district. There's an implication there that these people will have the same benefits and privileges that go with our Master Association benefits. By using the name Waterstone, there's a direct implication there that these people will be included in the Waterstone community, yet they have no standing on paper as part of the Waterstone community.
Any clarification on that from the...
Any questions?
Do you have a handout?
I do. Let me...
I'd like to see that, Mayor.
Sure.
Whatever she has.
This one in particular, the section I'm talking about is the last, it's Exhibit C within the interlocal agreement, and the section that is accepted is X'd there on the agreement. We would also request that if the city does choose to grant these changes of rezoning for the properties, these 5 properties that we're talking about, that they in some manner assess impact fees or some form of equity leveling so that these districts, so that these properties also share in the cost that it took to create the infrastructure to make this development possible.
This is Waterstone as it exists.
Mr. Shahara?
Mr. Mayor, council members, under our code, if somebody comes and connect to an existing water and sewer system that was recently built, they are entitled to reimbursement. And when these people came to talk to us, there was communication between them and Landstar that if Landstar builds the system and they come and connect to it, Landstar or the CDD is entitled to reimbursements. There is a formula in our code how they can be reimbursed, and if they reach a point of no agreement, they have to submit to us the cost of the infrastructure, and we look at the code, and the city can determine how much the cost for connecting to that infrastructure.
So the surrounding properties would have to pay?
Yes, they do have to pay.
I also want to point out that for the first 6 years of any community development district's existence, the board is made up of developers. There are no homeowners who are able to be elected to the board of the community development district for a full 6 years. We will elect the first person eligible as a property owner in 2007. And then we will begin to phase in one at a time over 2-year and 4-year terms until 2011, which will be the first year of its existence that the board will be filled by property owners of the district. So yes, I understand that there are provisions within that code to come to an agreement on what is equitable, but we don't trust the CDD to make those decisions equitable because it's not in their interest. We as homeowners are concerned about the assessments increasing and in general the basic 30-year debt that we have financed to bring this infrastructure here. And we want to make sure that any of those assessments that are made to these developers equal in spirit the same type of assessment that we had to pay if it is based on a per square footage, if it is based on a zero lot line distinction, which many of our plats are based on the different sizes of lots. Whatever would be equitable in the same way that we were taxed, we feel they should be taxed as well. But we don't have any recourse with our own board if we oppose the agreements that they come to in order to make those assessments, because we don't have representation on that board yet. We can go to their meetings and create a nuisance, as I'm sure you guys have flagged us as doing with your meetings, which is unfortunate because we don't want to be a nuisance, but that's really all we can do because we don't have elected representation on that board until 2006.
Mr. Shahara, did you mention that the city could play a role in assuring that
if they reach a disagreement between the entity that owns the water and sewer infrastructure and the adjacent property, the city can interfere and look at the cost and calculate it according to our ordinance.
So the city can play a role in making sure that it's fair and equitable?
We just want to ask you to play the role for us because we're not empowered to do that.
We will do that. Yes, sir. Give us your name and address for the record.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, council members, my name is Jeffrey Burkow. I'm with the law firm of Burkow and Riddell, 200 South Biscayne Boulevard in Miami. I'm here today representing Block Development Group. We're the applicant in this matter for the Grove project. And I'm here tonight with John Kovacs and Ashley Bosch, representatives of that project. I want to point out first that despite the name is the only connection to the Waterstone PUD project. There is no other connection. There's no unity of ownership. There's absolutely no relationship between this project and the Waterstone PUD. In fact, to our knowledge, we are not part of the CDD. We have reviewed the title, and there's no title information that indicates that we're part of the CDD. In fact, we have proffered a covenant to the city, one of your standard covenants, in which we agree that we are going to pay for all, we the developers are going to pay for all infrastructure for this project, road, water, and sewer, etc., at no cost to the city. We do have a favorable staff recommendation this evening. Our entire team, including our architect, Eddie Francis, our engineer, Carlos Balbay, and my colleague, Melissa Tapanis-Yawis, are all here to answer any questions that you may have, but we would urge you to support this ordinance on first reading. Thank you. In accordance with your staff recommendation.
And this come before us, Mr. LaPrade, from staff as a recommendation and the Planning and Zoning Board?
That is correct. Mayor and members of council, the Planning and Zoning Board approved this application 5-0, and staff recommends it as well. It's consistent with the comprehensive plan.
I have a question, Mayor.
Ms. Wellman?
I just want to make sure I understand this as well. The 5 turn lanes off of 137th, now it was made on public record tonight, said that it came from part of the assessments from, I can't see you, I'm sorry.
Excuse me, we need you to go to the microphone to speak, okay? That's okay.
Well, okay. I just want to be sure I understand exactly what you're saying tonight, because from what I heard, you're saying that the 5 turn lanes that are going to be, all 5 of these turn lanes into this particular project?
One goes into the main entrance of Waterstone, into Waterstone Way, accessing off 137th Avenue, and the other 4 turn into the properties, the 4 of the 5 properties that are listed in that section, on that zone, that boundary map that we entered into an exhibit. They turn into those, and the curbs and all the stuff that was done there with.
I just have to make very clear, I want to make very clear, because what I understand that you're saying is that your assessment fees are paying for their turning lanes.
And we also brought out the 18-inch sewer main. That means they only have to go to the edge of their boundary property to connect to it. It was brought out from the city of Homestead at the expense of our CDD, approximately $1.8 million, to bring an 18-inch water supply line out, and almost a similar amount to take a sewage, a water distribution and stormwater drain system back out of that area. Because part of that development, there was no infrastructure out to those properties.
Now, I just have to make sure that I'm understanding that, Michael, Mr. Shahada, you had said that the city could step in and represent these citizens as far as the public works and the infrastructure?
If they have a disagreement amongst them, the city can step in and look at the cost, the certified cost, and we look at the code and apply it according to the code.
And are you accepting of that?
We are, but we would like to be involved in that process. Even if we don't have a vote, we would like to see what the city is doing and ask you to keep us apprised. We can give you the names of 2 or 3 of the community leaders in the area that would be welcome, would be happy to attend any meetings that we would need to.
You're okay with that? Because you're going to be neighbors, so sure. I want to make sure that, we have however much peace and harmony we can have. And I'm sure in your homeowner docs it probably stated that you couldn't elect anyone to sit on the board until 2007. Is that correct?
It wasn't disclosed to us when we bought. It's actually in the public offering statement that wasn't made available to any of us whenever we bought our homes. We never found out about this until November of last year.
Well, I think when you stood before us several months ago that we all agreed that there was a certain lack of communication, and unfortunately you found out about it down the road, and it was a little too late. But I hope that we can all work to be good neighbors, and you do trust that the city will, on your behalf, do this because it was a unanimous vote from P&Z, although we don't have to take their recommendation. But at the same time, you know, I do trust our staff, so I just want to make sure that we have some harmony there. And I'm trusting that you as well will work with this young lady, as she seems to be the representative of her community, even though that she has no say on the homeowners.
We just want equity. We feel like that the taxation should be across the board the same for all those that are within the district. And we also ask a warning of the City Council as you create new districts in the future, as new developments come up, and we know that tends to be the trend these days, is to create these CDDs. Please, please, please make sure that when you create a block of land within a taxing district, that you don't leave a few donated pieces of gold nugget property for other developers to come in on and profit on the fact that the infrastructure was paid by the homeowners. We just ask you to watch our backs on that and make sure that your constituents have equal representation with all these developers. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
If I may respond to the councilwoman's inquiries, our engineer Carlos Balbay is here, and I don't think you've been given the complete picture, so I'd like Mr. Balbay to explain what's happened with those turning lanes.
Good evening, Carlos Balbay from Quito Balbay. I am the design engineer for the South Dade venture, and I'm also a Landstars design engineer. And I can assure you that there are no turn lanes being built by the South Dade Venture CDD, which will benefit this property. And I will be glad to show you the plans. That way you can feel comfortable that what I'm telling you.
Can you show
all the turn lanes on 137th Avenue were existing, because 137th Avenue was constructed.
Let him speak, please.
Okay, as you well know, when the racetrack was constructed, 137th Avenue was built with a bunch of turn lanes. Then when South Dade Venture came in, they built a turn lane into the Waterstone Phase 1, which you all know as Waterstone Way. And then they were in the process of building a turn lane at Campbell and 137th. It will be a southbound right turn lane. And also a turn lane into Waterstone Way, which is the third phase of Waterstone, which directly affect the Waterstone project. Okay, the rest of the turn lanes were all existing, and we're not building a turn lane for this project nor for any. So there is only 3 turn lanes being built on 137th. It's one at Waterstone Way, one at Waterstone Boulevard, and one at Campbell, all southbound right turn lanes into the project. And those are being funded by the South Dade Venture CDD. It's very simple. Then the rest of the turn lanes are all existing, and I will be glad to show those plans to this lady or to the city. The Public Works Director, Julio Brea, has all the plans. We prepare all the plans. He can confirm what I'm saying.
Oh.
And it's very simple.
Let me get confirmation from the staff on it, because we're not going to spend a lot of time. Is Julio here? Could you confirm what the gentleman just said, that
well, right now I don't have the plans with me, but I could make that verification.
Okay.
I would have to take a look at the files and see.
Okay. Well, we'll get verification.
And as a rule of the CDD is not allowed by law to construct improvements which benefit other property owners. You can only construct improvements that benefit the members of the CDD. So it's very simple to confirm, and you'll be glad to come to my office, or I'll bring you the plans or whatever you want to do.
Mr. Balbay, do you have any answer for who paid to create the lanes that now exist that turn into those 5 properties?
Southwest 137th Avenue was built when the racetrack was built so many years ago. I don't know.
No,
the turn lanes that go in, there is no
turn into these nursery properties that don't have that volume of traffic.
Well, this project right here, okay, this project right here has no right turn lane going into it. It's just they're connecting to the existing road, and it's a right in, right out only. So they're not making any modifications. The existing turn lanes on 137th Avenue have been there for 5 years that I know of, or maybe less. The ones that are being built are only going into the Waterstone project. It's very simple, and it's very simple to confirm too.
Well, could you, the two of you get together and could you review the plans with them, and if there's some controversy or some misunderstanding, then our staff can be at the table, and at the second hearing, we could clarify any misunderstanding at that time. If that's okay, we could proceed.
Mr. Mayor, it's obvious that this is complicated, and I was going to suggest perhaps that between first and second reading you have a supplementary staff report done which outlines the turn lanes, the funding of the turn lanes, and so that and it be prepared in advance so that the homeowners can see it and understand what it is, and then perhaps it would help at the second hearing.
Yes, that's my recommendation. Okay. Any other comments? I think Vice Mayor, you wanted.
It's okay. I wanted to comment that very often after sitting up here, I noticed that there tends to be a lot of confusion. Sometimes it's just a matter of communication. And I've sat here and I've realized it's a lot of miscommunications, because I was sitting here as you were speaking of the CDD funds being used to fund something that was outside the CDD. I knew that was not legal, so I didn't know how that could be taking place if it wasn't legal. And I know that these gentlemen have their legal authorities with them as well as the city. So it wasn't sounding right to me, so I really do recommend, and like I said, I think these things tend to be just a matter of communication, whether it's the developer's attorneys communicating, whatever it is, your questions definitely should be answered. But I do think that they would be foolish to not comply with the law, and CDDs are outlined very specifically in the law, how they can be conducted. And also check your CDD docs as well, because I'm not sure, but there's a possibility that you may not have representation until a certain year or up to a certain capacity of fulfillment, like 80-90% or something, so you may want to check your CDD docs on that as well. But again, I think it's just a matter of a miscommunication here, because I do think things probably are in order as confirmed by our city manager staff as well. Okay. So thank you very much.
I do want to clarify that there may be some miscommunication that needs to be clarified about the turn lanes, and we'll sit down and work that out to determine exactly what that is. The main issue here is that this property can be developed profitably only because our CDD paid to bring the expensive infrastructure to its doorstep.
It's already been stated that those costs have to be, it's already been stated by our city manager's office that those costs have to be passed on by the developer that is using those. So that's already been clarified.
But there's been nothing defined saying what that would be, and we have no representation on our board to make sure that the interest of our CDD, which is now in financial emergency condition, for 2 years in a row now, it has had its liabilities exceeding its assets. It's on the Office of Inspector General's report. Okay. And we want to make sure that the cash flow comes back into the CDD.
Right.
Because we don't want to lose this investment that we're committed to make.
As I said before, the CDDs are outlined in law, and there's a way that they have to be conducted, and the law must be followed in this, and I'm sure we're going to...
Absolutely, and we already know that Statute 190 was broken by all the developers because they didn't disclose to us. So they have no qualm about breaking Statute 190. That's why we're watchdogging them. So, you know, your faith may be a little misplaced, and we'll bring some things up in open forum as well, where they have broken your own ordinances when you enter into interlocal agreements with them to create these CDDs by not making proper disclosure. So yes, I do understand there may be some things we can clarify from miscommunication, but the premise that we bring that is most important is that we want to make sure that other developers don't benefit from the tax assessments that we are paying in order to make those properties developable. If we had not put Waterstone CDD in place and our constituents hadn't paid for that infrastructure, then those lands would never be able to be anything more than agricultural use. They would never be able to support any kind of density higher than agricultural use, because it would have been dependent on water wells, it would have been dependent on septic systems. Now they have the luxury of hooking up to city water and city water distribution systems, sewage return systems, and stormwater drain systems that simply would not have been there had we not paid for them.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
If I could for a moment. If they would like, we can meet with staff. We can show you we can do our calculation with the code, even though normally
there has to be a breakdown, or you feel that the reimbursement wasn't correct, and there has to be a disagreement before the city enters. But we can sit with you prior to that and just show you what the city code says, maybe do some calculations there, and then try to answer as best we can from the city standpoint at this point some of the questions that you have. And I think establishing that dialogue too, we can be ahead of the game as opposed to after the fact. So we'd appreciate if you would get in touch with us. We'll get you in touch with our engineers and work that out.
And Mr. Manager, I'm going to ask Councilman Porter, who chairs the Infrastructure Committee, to be at the table too, to be a part of the discussion process and clarify the issues that have been brought forth so that we could move forward on this request.
I do think because this is a quasi-judicial item that if Mr. Porter is going to be involved in any conversations, that we need to have some minutes taken and the developer needs to be present. Otherwise, if it's just staff, I have no problem with it, but because it's quasi-judicial, if Mr. Porter is going to be involved, then I think the developer needs to be present or just have staff do it. So I'll leave it up to you.
Thank you, Mr.
Mayor, may I also make one more comment? You know, you need to...
This is the final comment. We're going to end the hearing. Go ahead.
I just want everyone to understand that this is first reading. So based on the report that comes back to us, you know, there's still several other processes, but at this point in time, this is first reading.
Thank you. That ends the public hearing. Any final comments from council? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mrs. Waldman?
Yes.
Mrs. Bell?
Yes.
Ms. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Hodge?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Our next item is a resolution of the City of Homestead, Florida, granting final plat approval for Pod D, Sonora at Malibu Bay subdivision. 108 single-family units on approximately 23.34 acres of land in the Malibu Bay planned unit development located north of Southwest 312th Street, Campbell Drive, south of Florida's Turnpike, east of Southwest 152nd Avenue, and west of theoretical Southwest 142nd Avenue, as legally described in Exhibit A and providing for an effective date.
Is there a motion for adoption of the resolution?
So moved.
Moved by the Vice Mayor. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Porter. Any questions from council?
Comment, Mayor.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah, these are good, and these are what we like. These are nice, low-density, single-family, not apartments.
Could we have your attention, please?
This is exactly what we're looking for, and I like this a lot. So I'm giving my hearty approval on this.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Any other comments from council? Is this a public hearing? Any comments from the audience? Any comments from the audience? This is a public hearing. If not, I'll close the public hearing. Any final comments from council? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mrs. Waldman?
Yes.
Mrs. Bell?
Yes.
Ms. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Hodge?
Yes.
Mr. Losner?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
A resolution of the City of Homestead, Florida, granting final plat approval for Pod O Marianas Homes, Pebblebrook 2, 182 single-family units on approximately 29.3 acres of land in the Waterstone Planned Unit Development Phase 2, located south of Southwest 304th Street, northeast 15th Street, Kings Highway, north of Southwest 312th Street, Campbell Drive, west of Southwest 137th Avenue, Tallahassee Avenue, and east of the Florida Turnpike is legally described in Exhibit A and providing for an effective date.
I'll entertain a motion for approval.
I'll second it, Mayor.
Moved by Councilman Porter, seconded
I
by...
thought you were making the...
No.
I'll second it. I didn't know the mayor was gone.
Seconded by Councilwoman Waldman. Any comments from council or questions? Any comments from the public? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mrs. Waldman?
Yes.
Ms. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Hodge?
Yes.
Mr. Losner?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mrs. Bell?
Yes. Item number 4.
Yes. A resolution of the City of Homestead, Florida, granting final plat approval for Waterstone Boulevard, Spine Road East, within the Waterstone Planned Unit Development Phase 2, located south of 288th Street, Biscayne Drive, north of Southwest 312th Street, Campbell Drive, west of Southwest 137th Avenue, Tallahassee Avenue, and east of the Florida Turnpike is legally described in Exhibit A and providing for an effective date.
Is there a motion for approval?
Motion.
Moved by Councilman Hodge, seconded by Councilman Porter. Any comments or questions from council? Any comments or questions from the audience? This is a public hearing. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Ms. Gardner?
Yes.
Mr. Hodge?
Yes.
Mr. Losner?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mrs. Waldman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bell?
Yes. Item number 5.
A resolution of the City of Homestead, Florida, granting a waiver of plat to Homestead Energy Services for Lot 4 and the western portion of Lot 17 totaling 3 acres within Levine Industrial Park, located at Southwest 187th Avenue, Redland Road, and Northwest 7th Street, as legally described in Exhibit A, and providing for an effective date.
Move adoption.
Second. Moved by Councilman Porter, seconded by Councilwoman Gardner. Any comments or questions from council? Any comments?
See it happen.
Councilman Hodge said he's glad to see it happen. Comments or questions from the audience? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Ms. Gardner?
Yes.
Mr. Hodge?
Yes.
Mr. Losner?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mrs. Waldman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bell?
Yes. Item number 6.
A resolution of the City of Homestead, Florida, granting preliminary plat approval to Dolphin Amusement Enterprises, LLC, for Hamilton Place, a 10.49-acre site consisting of 101 townhouse units located on the southeast corner of Southwest 168th Avenue and Southwest 336th Street, as legally described in Exhibit A, and providing for an effective date.
Is there a motion for approval?
Motion.
Moved by Councilman Hodge, seconded by Councilman Porter. Comments or questions from council?
Mayor,
Councilman Porter, then Councilman Losner.
As far as the dollars generated in the infrastructure improvements to that particular area, that's kind of back in there's 2 lanes in, comes back into Tennessee to the east where you already have, is it Tennessee or Tallahassee?
Tennessee.
Tennessee.
Yes.
So you've already got kind of a little bit of a problem there to begin with. Are they going to pay for any of the improvements? Will they be allowed to help pay for that?
They have to improve a sidewalk in front of their property. Florida City is also developing to the west 172nd Avenue as a 3-lane, it's either 4-lane divided roadway or a 3-lane roadway in that area. And I know that the original developers of this, they've since sold the development, were part of the party that was paying for that. And my understanding is that the county is looking at improving 336th Street with some impact fee dollars, of which this would generate.
Now 336 is the north.
Is the east-west.
East-west, okay,
Yes.
336, and then it would tie into Palm to the south, Palm Drive.
Palm Drive ties in with Tennessee. This is 336 is Arthur Viney Davis Parkway. But
so the only impact at this particular point is minimal improvements to sidewalks, and then the impact fee dollars that would be generated.
That is correct.
Okay, thanks.
Councilman Losner.
Yes. Madam Vice Mayor, as you noted earlier, some of the projects that we've approved in the last few minutes are at the desired density of 6 or less, and I oppose to this zoning change based upon it being approximately 10 units per acre or more, and for that reason and consistency, I'm going to oppose this resolution.
Thank you. This is the same one I had a little bit of trouble with myself speaking with Charles about this today. We are trying to, although I know this particular area, why don't you share the area and what surrounds this area, Charles?
This area is kind of a cutout of the villages of Homestead DRI. To the north is Lakeshore condominiums. To the east of it, across Tennessee, there's a 20-acre parcel that's undeveloped before Tennessee, and then once you cross Tennessee, you have San Remo, and then the higher density areas of the villages of Homestead, the little condos, townhouse structures. And then to the west is Florida City, undeveloped land, and then Florida City, which they're going to come in and develop 15 units to the acre. This is, in our comprehensive plan, is medium-density residential. It was, this actual property was platted for townhomes back in the 60s when it was under county jurisdiction. So we've stayed consistent with the comprehensive plan, and that's the reason for the staff's report.
Right. This particular property is medium residential and it's surrounded by high density.
Higher density.
Yeah, a lot higher density than this one.
That's correct.
Thank you.
And Charles, you said it's within the comprehensive master plan?
Yes, sir. It is consistent with our comprehensive plan, yes.
Okay. Any other comments? Let me open up the public hearing.
No, I haven't done that yet.
Any comments, any further comments from council? This is a public hearing. Any comments from the audience? Any comments from the audience? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Any final comments from council? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Hodge?
Yes.
Mr. Losner?
No.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mrs. Waldman?
Yes.
Mrs. Bell?
Yes.
Ms. Gardner?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, that concludes the quasi-judicial portion of the agenda. Moving on to legislative matters, we have first reading of an ordinance of the City of Homestead, Florida, amending the city code by amending Chapter 2 Administration at Article 8 Contracts and Purchasing, at Division 2 Competitive Bids by amending Section 2-411 Purchasing Limitations to increase dollar limit thresholds before competitive purchasing procedures are applicable, and enhancing the city manager's authority to make purchases of supplies, materials, equipment, improvements, or services before City Council approval is required, and clarifying and revising local preference provisions, and amending Section 2-412, Notice of Bid, to increase dollar threshold before competitive bid procedures are applicable, and amending Section 2-413, Emergency Purchases, to clarify and revise existing provisions and to increase the dollar limit for the bidding and purchasing authority exemption applicable to emergency purchases for water, sewer, or electric utility purchases, and to include purchases for the city's solid waste service enterprise within such exemption, and to create such an exemption up to a specific dollar limit for emergency purchases which are necessary for the furnishing of other city services or the performance of other city functions or responsibilities, providing for severability, providing for inclusion in the code, and providing for an effective date.
Is there a motion for first reading?
Motion.
Moved by Councilman Hart, second by Councilman Porter. I'd ask for review from the city financial advisor. Auditor, have we gotten a response in terms of approval?
Yes, Mayor. Our finance director, Elena, had talked to our auditor, Jerry Chioka, and he was in agreement with the proposed ordinance.
That's good. Mr. Porter?
This ordinance can be repealed at any given time, so it's as though we set it up today. If a future council has issue with a future manager, they can take away that ability for him to spend that money. That's correct. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. This is the first reading. I will open the public hearing. Any comments from the audience? Any comments from the audience? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Any final comments from council? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Losner?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mrs. Waldman?
Yes.
Mrs. Bell?
Yes.
Ms. Gardner?
Yes.
Mr. Hodge?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes. And I'm told that this recommendation comes from the chairman of utilities, so he's in support of this.
I was the first yes out of the box.
Okay. Item 2.
Next is a resolution of the City of Homestead, Florida, authorizing transmittal to the Department of Community Affairs of a proposed evaluation and appraisal report of the comprehensive plan contained in Exhibit A, pursuant to the provisions of the Local Government Comprehensive Planning and Land Development Regulation Act, and providing for an effective date.
So moved.
Moved by the Vice Mayor. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Hodge. Let me give my congratulations to the Isla Group for doing an outstanding job, just first class. Well done. The first I've seen in this format, I think, just very comprehensive, easy to read, and I think it represents the city well. So send our regards to Mr. L and his group. Very good.
Mayor, if I might, just too embarrassing, most of the work was done by Jim. He's sitting right over there.
Congratulations. Job well done. Any comments from council? This is a required public hearing, Mr. Attorney? I'll open the public hearing. Any comments from the public? This is authorizing the council to transmit to the Department of Community Affairs our proposed evaluation of appraisal report of our comprehensive plan. Any comments from the audience? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Any final comments from council? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mrs. Waldman?
Yes.
Mrs. Bell?
Yes.
Ms. Gardner?
Yes.
Mr. Hodge?
Yes.
Mr. Losner?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Number 3 is a resolution of the City of Homestead, Florida, approving a request to vacate a roadway within Baywind's planned unit development and reserving to the city all rights over any needed public utility easements for an approximately 848.28-foot portion of Maury Drive, Southwest 320th Street, between Southwest 142nd Avenue and Southwest 147th Avenue, as legally described in Exhibit A and providing for an effective date. And Mr. Mayor, I believe Mr. Chandra has a revision to address to the council.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. There's a couple of things that are in the original, or in the recommendations in your package, which basically I wrote under Kurt's signature, that for some reason didn't get to the attorney's office, so it does not show in the resolution. They're items that should show, so I'd like to point them out to you so you can actually add them as we continue with tonight's exercise. The first thing is in number 4. It seems like a very minor item, but the last couple of words should say would allow for placement of utilities. This allows more than just water and utilities. It allows any utilities the city might need to put in there.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
So if you go to page...
I'm at number 4.
Page 4, number 4, the very last few words, it says placement of water and utility lines should be replaced with just placement of utilities. This allows for more than water. It allows all the different utilities that could go in that easement. That's a very minor technicality, but it's one that should be at least brought out.
Right. And I know this item was referred to back to staff, and I know the infrastructure committee was involved. Mr. Porter, is a recommendation based on the traffic analysis?
That will also be part of the discussion.
Part of discussion?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, sir. The other thing is in item 8. It says the city's requirements for the closure of vacation Maury Drive, including a turnaround at the east end of Maury, should say at both the east and the west end. The reasoning being as the two lines come and hit the other street, you got to be able to turn around from both sides. The next one is probably more in line with your comment, Mr. Mayor, as far as the traffic study. The eastern portion of this Spine Road will have a 56-foot right-of-way with the capacity for 4 lanes of traffic. That was one of the items you specifically asked that the infrastructure committee look at. And we had a number of meetings, and this is our recommendation. The last item would also have that the development services will require drawings which show the results of the recommendations above for the city's review, comment, and approval. A lot of what we're saying here is general information that we agree with, but we actually need to see the physical drawing that shows in concrete what these lines mean. And I'll entertain any questions if I've confused you. That wasn't my intent.
And the attorneys embrace these additions?
Yes, we have no issues with them, and we can make the changes to the resolution.
Thank you. Any initial comments from council?
Mayor, I'd like to just add one thing. I just want to clarify and verify to the public that this final traffic analysis was ordered by the city, performed by the people that we hired, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and paid for by the city.
Eventually, we haven't yet, just ma'am.
Paid for by the city. Because this has been a big issue, and I've always said that we couldn't make it. No one could decide. The two couldn't get together. We said we'd. Excuse me.
I need to add to the end before you finish, if you can, ma'am, simply so you can tell everybody the whole story. During the meetings we had, we did ask that the traffic study be done by B&A as the city's traffic engineer. They did. They used all the available data. They didn't create any new data. They used data from all the prior reviews and came back with a recommendation essentially for the 4 lanes of traffic, which shows in the 56-foot width of right-of-way. However, the applicant was disagreed with the fact that not so much the 4 lanes of traffic, but disagreed whether he needs to put in all 4 lanes or whether his development only requiring 2 and the other 2 may come later on. So what we actually did at this point was frame this resolution to just get the 56-foot width right-of-way. The applicant will come back with another study paid by him. He has to provide that to the city. City staff, the infrastructure committee, and the city's traffic engineer will look at it again, and the burden of proof is on the developer as to whether or not he needs to put in all 4 lanes or the 2 lanes. just so you realize that's still going as far as the lanes of traffic. What we were able to do here, ma'am, was get basically agreement that there should be the capacity for 4 lanes of traffic. Who's going to put them in and how much, how fast will still be part of the discussion.
I just want to make sure that staff's recommendation was based on the traffic study and the analysis done by our engineers.
Yes, ma'am, it was.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wallman.
Mayor?
So, Lynn, you want to?
Can I just...
Ms. Garner?
I'm just having a little... I need staff's reassurance. This has come a long way. It's gone on both sides. I know that the developers are giving a lot. I know they didn't want to do the 4 lanes at the beginning. It's gone back and forth. Now they're paying for some of the gas lines, engineering improvements. They're paying for all the costs. Is 4-lane adequate? Does it need to have, does it need a divider in between? Is this, because I'm comparing it to my neighborhood, okay? I live in Centergate, so Farm Life Road is what I'm comparing it to between Palm and North Canal. It's not a very wide road. It's 4 lanes, but it's actually kind of beneficial because people tend to drive slower because they don't have huge luxurious lanes. They have slightly thin lanes, but it has a divider. Is this necessary? Is this a safety issue? Are we okay without a divider? Because I want staff's recommendation. I rely upon your recommendation heavily, and I want you to make me feel comfortable that we're not going to come back later on with a problem, because traffic seems to be one of our biggest issues, probably the biggest issue other than schools right now.
Let me hope that I can allay your fears. First of all, again, like I just mentioned to Councilman Wallman, we have 56 feet of right-of-way which will allow 4 lanes of traffic. We have not, at this point, until the traffic study comes back again, exactly how those 4 lanes will lay out. There's options in which if you put a sidewalk on both sides, put in the lanes of traffic, there's no way to put a divided median. There's ways in which if you put the sidewalk on one side, you can play with putting in a median. Again, what I would like to say is that I think the 56-foot width is sufficient to do that. And again, wait to see what the rest of the traffic study comes back. Also, there's been comment that there should be more turn lanes and this and that. Is staff's feeling and discussion with the traffic engineer that that is not necessarily needed because the turnoffs are into the individual pods and there are a certain amount of stacking by that turnoff, but that again is something we'd go specifically at the time we get the rest of the traffic study. I don't know if that's enough of a warm and fuzzy for you, ma'am.
Well, that helps. I mean, if we're going to come back with another traffic study and say specifically sidewalk, east side, divider, or sidewalk 2 sides, no divider.
The end of that study will basically say what fits in the 56 feet of width. Yes, ma'am.
But you are comfortable with the 56 feet?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Can I weigh in?
Yeah, great. Mr. Porter?
I had the privilege of being involved in this, thanks to the mayor. But I tell you, when we started this whole debate, it started out with the roads being totally private. No one from the outside that didn't live in the community would be able to go and utilize that roadway system. And through the course of a lot of different meetings and a lot of different discussion, they were advised that if they couldn't come up with 4 lanes of access all the way through the property and join into the old, what is now 2-lane Mallory Road to the east and provide connectivity to 137 to the east, we weren't going to be able to deal with this. It was going to be a very difficult situation. So we started with private roads and ended up with 4-lane complete access all the way through to 137. There's been a lot of give and take on both sides of the table from the surrounding property owners and from the owners of the development inside. The 56-foot right-of-way is a minimum. It is a minimum that we need to provide 4 lanes of traffic and connectivity from east to west. And that minimum is what we were able to get through in the committee meeting. Being as I'm the only elected official in there at this particular point, I can't speak for the council. So we brought forth a recommendation from this committee that says we did a lot of work. We've made it better, and it is what it is today, 56-foot right-of-way.
Now, I know that there's some concerns about divided, undivided sidewalks. Those issues we were not going to tackle at that particular juncture. We just tried to preserve the ability to put 4 lanes of traffic out to the east side of Maury, which will end up taking a lot of those residential people out of their community, not putting them onto what is now an underdeveloped Lucy Street, or making them and forcing them onto what will be an overwhelmed 312, which is Campbell. We wanted to be able to divert some of that traffic over to 137, which could be improved further if necessity was to dictate it. So we worked this thing in the committee with the staff members from the city, all the participants from both sides of the equation. We could only get it to 56 feet. And so, Mr. Mayor, that's where we stopped, knowing that from that particular point on, it was going to be the political will of the council as to whether or not 56 would be the appropriate dimensional value that the city was looking for. It is the bare minimum. It will work. You may end up giving up something in a sidewalk. You may end up giving up something someplace else. It's before you in a much better frame than when it started, and it's because of the willingness of all the participants to sit around the table and literally beat each other up. And I will commend them all for doing that. And it did get to every now and then when I needed your gavel, Mr. Mayor, but we did have to break on occasion to get outside the room and discuss things a little bit more openly. But I will say that at this particular point, I think it's totally the political will of this council to decide whether they want to preserve 56 foot. And the numbers justified that we needed 4 lanes out of that property development using the existing numbers that were used in the first study. So I have great faith in what the infrastructure committee was able to do, all the participants involved, and it's up to the political will at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Mr. Lynn?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council, John Lynn on behalf of the Alger family. We don't think that the city should have to accept the minimum. You presently have a very valuable asset. You have a half-section line road that's a public right-of-way, Maury Drive. It's one of the 3 major east-west connectors. It varies in width between 100 feet and 75 feet in width, which is a major asset. It's like having an asset in the bank that you could draw on the future if you need it. A good example is what you're doing down on Lucy Street. You're 4-laning Lucy Street because the needs of the community are such that you have to widen it to 4 lanes. What challenges this issue is the fact that you're being asked to vacate a public right-of-way and replace it with a CDD road, which is going to be privately owned or owned by the district, totally controlled by the district. And unless you get it exactly right at this stage, you're going to have problems in the future. We have hired our traffic engineers who've sat in on the studies and the conferences. They've reviewed all of the existing traffic studies. And in his opinion, and he's here tonight to point out to you that this 56-foot undivided 4-lane is going to create problems. It doesn't allow for any turn lanes or any possibility of turn lanes. And if you would look at the structure of what they propose on this replacement road, you have an 80-foot divided 4-lane road coming into the T intersection, a 70-foot divided 4-lane road going south to 328th, and now they want to neck down the eastern portion of this to 56 feet undivided. That's going to create all kinds of future problems in our opinion. We would ask that you reconsider the staff recommendations in 3 points. The first one being the width of this eastern leg of this fine road. We don't think that a 56-foot undivided width is going to be sufficient. Our engineer tonight is here to propose that in order to provide continuity as far as aesthetics go, you should continue with an 80-foot divided line all the way across to the east of 142nd Avenue. Short of that, a 70-foot divided would suffice if you don't want to go the 80-foot. But a 70-foot would be the minimum to provide for the minimum turn lanes that may be required. The second item that we want you to address would be the closure, the temporary closure of the eastern portion of this spine road. The city proposes that at the city discretion that this be reopened and that a covenant be placed in the homeowners association that would give notice to the homeowners, allowing the city the full discretion to reopen that when and if circumstances warrant. We would propose that you put a sunset provision in that reopening so that it not only be at the city discretion, but it either be at the improvement of 142nd Avenue or a date certain where that road would be open. And we would propose the date certain would be at the end of the build-out of this Bay Winch project, which I think has been stated as being in 2008. So we think there needs to be a date certain, a sunset provision that would trigger the reopening of this road, because one thing we want to avoid is to have the homeowners of Bay Winds at the conclusion of the development out there to come in and object without having notice that there was going to be this open road that would go further to the east. The last item that we would like for you to consider with regards to the recommendations was contained in your own city engineer report. In their conclusions in paragraph 3, they stated that based upon our analysis, there are some other unsignalized movements that experience unacceptable levels of service. These should be further analyzed with new traffic data for optimization of each intersection. We would ask that you insert that as a condition of this new study that they're going to propose to find out about traffic flows and what signalization is going to be required and what turn lanes may be required. You have to look at future development out to the east, because not only is it going to affect the properties to the east, but it's going to affect the people that are in Bay Winds and those living to the west that may want to traverse eastward to 137th Avenue. So it's a very important issue at this stage. I'd like to present our traffic engineer for a brief discussion of what he found, and then reserve a few minutes afterwards so I can summarize for you. This is Jack Homestead.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Jackson M. Allstead. I'm a registered professional engineer in the state of Florida with offices at 46 Northwest 94th Street, Miami Shores. I specialize in traffic and transportation engineering and planning. What John has said is accurate. A 56-foot right-of-way would be adequate for 4 lanes undivided without turn lanes. Unfortunately, the analysis that's based on was based on studies prepared by Bay Winds and other folks in the area that really did not anticipate the connection of Maury Drive through to 137th Avenue and did not anticipate the improvements to 142nd Avenue. It also, appropriately enough, did not address the possibility of future development out along the Maury Drive corridor east of 142nd Avenue. That's something that typically wouldn't be done if you're developing a project, but in the long-term planning or for your community, those are the sorts of things you have to keep in mind. The analysis did come back, the B&A analysis did come back and say 4 lanes undivided was adequate, but that analysis, to the best of my knowledge, did not address the specific intersections where the pod roadways, the internal roadways for Bay Winds, would connect into this spine road or Maury Road. And all we're saying at this point is that needs to be looked at because the obvious implication is if you have a 4-lane undivided roadway, you're going to wind up with left turns into the project that would impede through traffic on Maury Drive. Maury Drive, as you all know, is the only viable east-west roadway to provide local access and internal circulation, as well as possible relief to Campbell Drive and North Canal Drive. And it's my feeling at this time that the analysis, while credible, it's premature to make a decision so fundamentally important as to limiting the width of the right-of-way to only 56 feet. You'd be better served if you would permit the process to continue on through to a point where it was clearly determined what would be an adequate cross-section at all the individual intersections, because as John said, you're only going to get one shot at this because it's not going to be a publicly dedicated right-of-way in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Porter?
Charles or Rick, does anyone have the layout of the road it shows the east-west connectivity and how it all lays out? Because I think from a council point of view, we're kind of at a disadvantage because we're sitting up here talking about this right-of-way and that right-of-way, and I don't think it's really fair. I will clarify one thing, Mr. Mayor, and B&A did do an analysis. The first analysis or traffic study that was done by the developer group took the assumption that no traffic was going to go eastbound on to Maury. So that assumption, when the other analysis was done by the city's consultant, B&A, the assumption was traffic was going to proceed to the east, and the assumption came out that approximately 30% of the residents inside this community would use that road if they were allowed to go to the east. Now 30%, I don't know, I'm not sure if that number is 100% accurate, but there was a considerable portion of the community that would go eastbound if given the opportunity. That was where it came to the analysis from B&A's point of view, which was our engineer, that there needed to be 4 lanes of traffic available to the east to tie into what is now Maury, the old Maury, which is 2 lanes. But it has the right-of-way for the future to be 4 lanes. Okay. So clearly, the study used existing numbers, but the criteria was changed a little bit to open access to the east. With the criteria changed, it showed a necessity for traffic to go eastbound, and that was when the staff took the position 4 lanes. Then we started negotiating on the footprint. And there were 3 separate engineers at the table. All of them had close but not identical opinions. So again, the portion, Charles or somebody, can you show the portion that is the issue as far as the old Maury? That was the 2-lane area from the park or the clubhouse was 2 lanes. That was where the staff took the position, and the infrastructure committee said, no, it's got to be 4 lanes. So just so everyone knows, it's 80 feet from the west coming in, and it's 70 feet from the bottom coming up. They're going to have to redesign that intersection there because it won't work in its existence. But the questionable area is the area from there out to the east.
So it has to be...
And I'm sorry, Mr. Brewer, and then going out to the east, for the record, that road is...
Maury. It ties into the existing 2-lane in front of Farm Share and the old packing houses and ends up at 137. But I'm sorry, I know that it was hard for me to keep up, and I've been involved, so I just wanted you guys to have the ability to see what was truly being looked at. So.
Was there any comment, Mr. Porter, on the sunset provision that was asked to be considered?
Well, I can't specifically remember. Let me refer to Rick.
To the best of my knowledge, the first time we've heard about that is this evening. What B&A did say at the meeting, in their opinion, was that based on using the information available and using the prior Kinley Horn traffic study, that it was their opinion that it would need 4 lanes that build out at 2008, which is the item that was of contention in terms of whether it needed 4 lanes by now or by then. We ended up going with just reserving essentially the right-of-way, but the applicant said that he would like to be able to present his numbers again to see if he could verify whether or not he needed to build the other 2 lanes. It was his specific statement that the burden of proof is to whether or not they need to build 2 lanes or 4 lanes at this point rest with the applicant, and they would go through another analysis to try to express or prove their position that they should build 2 rather than 4. And we agreed that we would look at that, but that our numbers leading into that, we felt it was 4 lanes. But we agreed that we would at least disagree sufficiently enough to have that study done one more time. The sunset thing, I don't really like myself, and again, Richard's not here, simply because the whole thing was written to say that when that road gets extended, or when the city feels it's in the best interest of the city to do that, we would ask for that. I think putting a sunset on that within a short period of time is actually hamstringing the city more than leaving it open for us to say when we'd like to ask for the thing to be opened to be extended. In other words, the sunset thing, if I understand you right, is the edge in terms of what is closed at this point, John?
That's correct. That would be the outside date. It would be either triggered by a date certain or when 142nd Avenue is improved.
Well, again, my humble feeling is that it should be, again, when it gets improved or when the city decides it should be done, before or after. I don't like the sunset at this point in time. I think it does limit us a little bit more than it should.
Mr. Mayor, also on that same issue, we would ask that if a covenant is placed with the homeowners association, that the wording of that be approved by form and content by the city attorney to make sure that there is adequate notice to the homeowners.
Thank you, Mr. Land. Any other comments from council?
Just one quick comment, and maybe Mr. Porter might know the answer to this, but I know I've been driving around a bit and noticing spine roads and other developments, and to me, this is going to be okay. But I just want you to tell me, Rick or Mr. Porter, have you researched any other developments with the spine roads and the possibility of it being very similar to this situation?
Well, I can say this, ma'am. This may, again, not make you comfortable with maybe answer the specific question you asked. When we started the discussion, it was Mr. Gomez's opinion from B&A that the minimum should be 60 feet, which is a standard Dade County 4-lane roadway system, non-divided. We went back and forth and came up with 56 simply to try to squeeze everything in there. I'm not adverse to 60, but I think 60 would be the normal one that you would get if you're doing a county road. So, but as far as going to other places, no, ma'am, we did not. This was done theoretically by the numbers.
And if I may,
yes, please.
I would say that obviously when we had, I personally, as one single council member, had no ability to negotiate a deal on behalf of the council. My position with the developing groups and all the engineering personnel that were there, that this council needed to preserve 4 lanes of traffic for the future. That was the mission that they were given. That was when everybody got mad and got up and left the room because there was 60, 70, 80, all these different dimensions were being thrown around. The developers came back in and said that they could get 56 feet that would not hinder their ability to do their development. I asked staff at that time, Julio was in the meeting, and they all took a look at it and concurred that 56 was doable, and so therefore we left that meeting with the 56-foot minimum. One of the things that has to come into play, although it is the properties to the east of this development are outside the urban development line, and so at current existing data, that's not developable property. So there is a consistency or a question of how big of a infrastructure can you build right up to the edge of the development line. So 60 was discussed, 70 was discussed. We left the room with 56, and I felt like that was the best we could do under the circumstances. And I don't know, the players are here today. If someone wants to ask about a 60-foot right-of-way, then I think we should hear from the developers. But I will say this, that there was huge debate about this. So I think it's doable. I think it will suffice. I don't know what the future holds for anything outside the urban development line, but we will be able to save the sanctity of 4 lanes of traffic that will be able to get to 137th Avenue, which has a capacity to be 8 or 10 lanes going to the turnpike. So this was a very contentious issue. So I mean, it's up to the political will to say see about the 60-foot, see about the 56 is a minimum we can do.
If I might add one other thing, Mr. Porter. Ms. Lynn mentioned signalization of other intersections, etc. I do think that that's a valid concern, and I believe that when BMA had written their first review, they indicated that the possibility may exist to make some modifications upstream or downstream. I do not see where that is beyond the scope of what they would be looking at when they
do the second study?
When it comes in another time to look at it again. That's a valid comment. I have no problem with that whatsoever.
Mr. Shahada?
Mr. Mayor, council members, I'd like to mention a few facts to take into consideration making your decision. First of all, the issue with the sunset. Definitely we don't like to have a sunset day there, because one of the reasons we asked for that road to be closed at that location is the existing infrastructure east of that location is substandard. We don't have roads to allow traffic to be on them. You are all familiar with Maori Drive. It's really the subgrade and the paving and everything we have there is substandard. We don't like to open it for traffic by a certain date. However, we don't have a problem, and I think that's what Rick mentioned in his recommendation. Two things will trigger the opening of that road: the improvement to Maori Drive or city requested. We don't mind adding 142nd as a trigger as long as 142nd is connected to 328 or connected to Campbell Drive. We have to have connectivity. When people get on that road, they'll be able to go somewhere. However, when it will be required to be improved, I don't think it's fair to ask the developers now to improve 142nd. It doesn't serve their property at all. The other thing, the Maori Drive, even though it's a half-section road, in our comp plan is classified as a local road. Charles, correct me if I'm
local street.
Local street, and that's normally 50 feet wide. The other thing, 4 lanes, divided or not divided, will provide you with the capacity to deliver traffic. You could commission 10 studies to be done, traffic studies. They all start with assumptions, and if the assumptions are not exactly identical, you will have 10 different opinions. So it's that traffic study, you could look at it as an opinion, and some traffic engineers may disagree with me, but it's really an opinion. The other thing you have to take into consideration, 147 Avenue is a two-lane road. So if you have Maori Drive coming with 6 lanes, it's going to go to 2-lane road. The other thing, if we continue having the existing road the way it is without rerouting or vacation, and that road is constructed with 4 lanes, divided highway coming to an intersection, it's going to be a T intersection. The only way to continue you have to make a right or a left on 147 if you want to go to Maori Drive. With the existing setup, it's absolutely the best solution. Therefore, just bottom line, this is the best we can get. And I agree with Mr. Bort, I agree with Rick Chandra. This is the best solution we can have at this point, and it will deliver traffic capacity we need.
Thank you, Mr. Shahada.
You're very welcome.
Any other comments from council? This is a public hearing. Any further comments from the audience? Any further comments from the public?
Mayor, I'd like to address this very briefly because...
Your name for the record, please.
Dick Coker, representing Baywinds Joint Venture, the applicant here. Baywinds Joint Venture has done everything that the city has asked. Baywinds Joint Venture has done everything that the city has asked. They've continued this and tabled this. They've gone to every meeting. They've had all their experts at all the meetings. And we worked out a very difficult issue with the infrastructure committee, and we think with the Alger family we were kind of surprised about what occurred tonight. But this is not a situation that we're starting from scratch and talking about how to deal with the relocation of Maui Road. As you recall, this is a PUD that was approved. that site plans have now been engineered and developed. Plats have been prepared. Everything you see on that master plan has been engineered, sold to builders, promised to contractors. It is that far down the road. And it's not a matter of the developer saying, I'm not going to give you 60 or 70 feet. It's the matter of, these are engineered site plans. What can we do to address the city's issue and still keep intact the development plan that so many people have relied upon, so many approvals have been obtained. We came back. Actually, what happened is the 60-foot right-of-way accommodates a 4-lane section, undivided 4-lane section. That's your standard section. What we came back and said, well, after looking at the exact site plans on either side of the road, we said we can do 55 feet. Your traffic engineers stopped the meeting, got out their calculators, and said, we need 56, and 56 feet. Every traffic engineer in that room agrees that in terms of laneage, in terms of accommodating traffic speed and the number of cars, 56 feet accommodates the same number of lanes and with the same flow, the same capacity as a 60-foot right-of-way. The only difference is maybe the swales are a little bit different, the curbs are a little bit different, maybe the lighting has to be put somewhere else. But in terms of traffic movement, 56 feet can accommodate the same traffic patterns as a 60-foot right-of-way. And that's why when the infrastructure committee heard from their traffic engineers and every other traffic engineer agreed that that cross-section could be accommodated in 56 feet, that's the recommendation that you have here. 56 feet actually accommodates the city's requirement of having a 4-lane connector and preserves the developer's site plan. And that's where we're here today for. I know you know this, but I just want to remind you of one thing. Two things, actually. Long-range planning, everybody uses those words. That's exactly what you do when you adopt a comprehensive plan and you adopt a 2020 traffic plan. On your 2020 traffic plan and your comprehensive plan, this is a local street. On the 2020 plan and your comprehensive plan, that is east of the 142nd Avenue is outside the UDB. That's what you all did. You are planning for the future. And in your future plans for the next 20 years, you've decided that Mallory Road is a local road. I think the infrastructure committee was being very conservative, regardless of what your ultimate designation of Mallory as a local road. They were being very conservative and said, regardless of what we plan for a minimal right-of-way in the future, we want to make sure, we don't want to shortchange ourselves, we want to make sure there's enough capacity or enough right-of-way for a 4-lane. And that's the way it ended up. That's the recommendation that's before you today. That's the agreement of the developers after much discussion with everybody. The only other thing I want to mention to you is right on the other side, this is Baywinds. Right to the west of Baywinds is Renaissance, and you see Mallory comes here. This section has already been vacated, as you know, and it's being replaced by this east-west corridor, also within the CDD, but completely open to the public, exactly like the Baywinds project is going to be, completely open to the public. So Mallory doesn't go west. It connects over here, but between 147th and 152nd, it goes up to the north about a quarter of a mile and then goes over. So there's not a straight through on Mallory Drive. Again, these developers have done everything that they've been asked. Has been as cooperative as anybody could be. And we ask you tonight to please put this to bed, accept the recommendation of your staff and the infrastructure committee, and approve this vacation, subject to all the conditions that have been laid out by your staff. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Coker. Any final comments from council? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
We never had a motion.
You had a motion? Is there a motion?
I'll do motion.
Moved by Mr. Hodge, a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Ms. Wallman. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mrs. Waldman? Yes. Mrs. Bell?
Yes.
Ms. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Hodge?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Item 7A, are we on 7A, Mr. Attorney? Yes.
Yes.
Item 7A?
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, approving and authorizing settlement of the case of David Rumler before the Florida Division of Administrative Hearings, Office of Judges of Workmen's Compensation Claims, providing for an effective date.
Is there a motion for adoption of the resolution?
So moved.
Moved by the Vice Mayor, is there a second?
Second, Mayor.
Second by Councilwoman Wallman. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mrs. Bell?
Yes.
Ms. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Hodge?
Yes.
Mr. Losner?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mrs. Waldman?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes. Business on the city manager?
Real quick, just a couple of things. One, I'd like to announce the free income tax assistance that's going to be conducted at the Homestead Family YMCA at Harrisfield, 1034 Northeast 8th Street. This assistance will be conducted from February 5th through April 9th, Saturdays only, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. This is free tax assistance available for low to moderate income taxpayers. Total income should not exceed $36,000. Now, there's a number of items with this, but if you could go to www.cityofhomestead.com, this is on our website. Also, for those that do not have computers, Lillian Delgado, our PR person, public information person at 305-224-4415, can also provide the additional information. Secondly, we had Representative Congressman Mario Diaz-Balart here this evening. We wanted to mention that he does make an office visit here available to citizens in the community, available the third Wednesday of every month in City Hall to assist residents with any questions or concerns having to do with federal issues such as immigration, Social Security, Veterans Affairs, Medicare, or federal grants. If you need assistance with any of these types of matters, please come by City Hall, 790 North Homestead Boulevard, between the hours of 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. The schedule for the next 3 months is as follows: February 16th, March 16th, and April 20th. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Vice Mayor Bell?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll try to be brief because there was so much that happened this past few weeks. So much. I was present at the ribbon cutting ceremony for Adnell Concrete, one of the largest concrete providers, and it was actually a pretty big event with Miami-Dade County Mayor Carlos Alvarez present and Commissioner Katie Sorensen. Also went to a ribbon cutting ceremony for the Elijah Network, which is a community outreach center that is going to be housed in a Christian Family Worship Center in the Homestead Naranja area, and they're partnering with Drug-Free Community in Dade County. It's a very, very good program. It's pretty much a prevention program, trying to get the kids before they get into trouble. I wanted to compliment the city on a great rodeo weekend. It was a great event. It was just absolutely packed, very, very well done, and I just wanted to compliment the Rodeo Association as well as the City of Homestead. I also was very pleased to be present and represent the city at the Coast Guard commissioning ceremony of MSST Miami, which is a Miami safety and security team. And it is like a SWAT team on the water, if you will, and it's a division of Homeland Security housed at the Homestead Air Force Base. So I was very excited to represent the city of Homestead, and this is a fabulous addition to our community as well. Also, all of us attended the groundbreaking ceremony for the new BJ's in Homestead, and I know we're all excited about that as well. I was also very proud to be the commencement speaker for the first graduating class at SciTech, which is the School for Integrated Technologies out at Job Corps on the Homestead Air Force Base. It is a partnership with Dade County Public Schools and Job Corps, and it's a wonderful, wonderful program. And a lot of the people who graduate, it's kind of would have been dropouts for some part, teens who were kind of headed in the wrong direction. And it's a really, really awesome program. And it took Job Corps and SciTech, it took them 5 years to get the Dade County Public School System to sign on board to it. And it's a fabulous, fabulous program, so I wanted to attend to support those kids and just let them know how much we appreciate them and what they're doing and the careers that they're headed for in their lives. Also, I was very pleased to attend the Run for Life banquet dinner. It's put on by Sacred Heart Catholic Church, and they raise funds to support all homes for unwed mothers throughout the state of Florida, so I was very pleased to be there as well. Steve already spoke about the Rotary dinner, and it was very, very, very good, and we also attended a opening baseball ceremony at J.D. Red Park. When I said we did a lot, there was a lot going on this past 3 weeks, there really, really was. But I just wanted to share that with the community, and thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilwoman Garner.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I'd like to say I'm glad that road closure issue's over. I was never completely happy or completely comfortable with it, but I don't think it was going to get any better, and I have to give the Infrastructure Committee kudos for all their hard work on that. I would like to thank all the volunteers and supporters who came out to the Homestead Junior Women's Club rodeo dance. We raised a little over $27,000 when we had to pay a couple bills, but all that money is going to go back to our community in the form of scholarships and helping those who need it, the homeless shelter, things like that. We had over 1,000 people in attendance, and thank you all who showed up and had fun with us because we had a great time. Just a reminder to the Mayor's Youth Council, our regular meeting for February is on Valentine's Day, but they requested we change it from 7 p.m. to 5 p.m. so they could all go on their hot dates. So don't forget it's at 5. And last, I just want to thank Charles and Development Services for their help. Farm Life Road has been striped. I know it's only temporary because they haven't actually finished the road, but it's made a big difference. People are no longer driving in the middle of the road, they are driving in 2 lanes. So thank you for that, and I hope that when they actually finish the road, we can keep on them to get it striped immediately then. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilwoman Garner. Councilman Hodge.
Thank you, Mayor. Real brief, I just wanted to announce that CRA has partnered with our police department, and we do have the video cameras monitoring some of our troubled dump sites. So they are in place, and they are monitoring those. So we're not going to say where they're at, but just be aware that you are being monitored if you're dumping in the wrong place and not at the dump where you're supposed to be. So we're very glad that that's up and running and going. Also, from the Technology Committee, we have implemented the digital recording of our meetings. They have not yet been uploaded to our website, but they're working on that currently. And eventually, you no longer have to bother the clerk to see a meeting. You'll be able to go to the website and just click on it and view it live, just as if it was been videotaped for you. And I think eventually, hopefully in our next budget year, we'll be able to grasp the equipment to be able to burn the DVDs if they don't have the computers. So those are some technology upgrades that we've made, and I tell you that there's a big difference. I've had to listen to some of those tapes, and they're like Judy said, they're very horrible. But looking at the digital version of it, I mean, it's really nice and really clear. So I'm very thankful that we've moved forward in that. And Ms. Councilwoman Bell has pretty much took care of our events for us, and so we just want to say thank you and continue having a good night.
Thank you, Councilman Hodge. Councilman Losner.
Thank you. Well, Vice Mayor has done a terrific job of covering all the events the last couple of weeks, but we do have one more coming this Saturday, and remind the public that the annual Red Cross Ball is this Saturday night, and I think there are still seats and tables available. Mr. Manager, I want to thank you and Code Enforcement and Solid Waste and all those who were involved in the trash problem that was brought to my attention over in the Sky Vista area this week. Again, another example of we live in a community where a citizen can contact his or her representative and get results quickly, and I, defy you to find that in many other communities, and certainly out in the unincorporated area. That's what separates us and makes us a distinct and unique community. I thank all those who did attend the Rotary auction this past weekend. We've raised, best estimates are about $60,000 that we put back into the community. It was the 20th annual event, and another successful night in our community. So thank you, Mayor. We are on track for the 93 agreement. The manager and I expect a draft of something to bring forward to you or circulate among you, hopefully this week. Annexations proceeding. Charles, do we have a date yet on that next hearing at the Planning Advisory Board?
I haven't been provided with a date yet from the county.
Good. We'll keep you up to date on that, and we are still progressing on our attempts to acquire the new City Hall site without the need for litigation. Well, thank you, Mayor. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Lawson. Now, who won the chili cooking contest? That's one thing that the Vice Mayor...
Oh, oops, sorry.
Do anyone have did Charles win it this year?
Sorry,
Charles was out of town.
Oh, Charles was out of town. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lawson. Mr. Porter?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of points. Mr. Manager, when staff is talking, I can hardly ever hear them. I don't know what the problem is, if I'm just getting old and deaf, or if it's the table's too wide, or for some reason. I mean, I struggle, and it doesn't have to really do a lot with, I think, a lot of background noise. It's something about the microphones. When Susan was there the whole time I'm struggling to hear what she's saying. I wish that you could find out what may be the problem.
I agree.
I think we're all struggling.
Especially Charles and Rick's microphone.
Well, Charles needs to learn how to talk.
Mine gets far too much use. I've worn it out.
Mr. Manager, I would appreciate that. It's just really a struggle.
I agree completely. Completely.
Maybe I can ask Julio. The project that's going on Tennessee in front of Lakeshore has been going on since before the races in November. That's become really it's really a problem. I know they're doing a substantial amount of work, but it's really become a problem for a lot of different reasons. The cut across North Canal is open, it's closed. It's open, it's closed. It's open. I mean, it's been that way for a very, very long time. I know it's not your project. It's a county project, right?
Well, actually, the developers are doing that work. We are trying to expedite the completion of that. However, those are gravity lines which are very deep. They're about 17 feet deep. It's a very complicated process to put those in, and really we're trying to schedule the work in a way that we least impact the community around there. So we're not doing the work all in one shot. We're doing it in pieces so as not to impact, let's say, traffic during heavy volumes, etc. I know that sometimes it does become an inconvenience. I drive that road myself, and we are trying our best trying to minimize that as much as possible. But there are going to be some times when those roads are going to have to be closed until the completion.
Well, I agree, and as we proceed forward with more development and more road constructions, what about we currently have in the police department the signs that talk about speed limits, and a lot of times by the time you get all the way to where the detour is, if you had just made a turn back at the last intersection, you could have saved yourself a half a day's travel. What about, has there been any thought process behind maybe getting some signs like the police use and detour at the intersection a little farther, or say there is a road's not open? Because by the time you get to some of those detours, they do rather make it difficult for you. And I don't know in other areas they allow you to know ahead of time, a good bit ahead of time, that there's a detour ahead. In our case right now, the detour you don't know the detour is there until you get to it.
Well, the detour signage that we're using now is following the DOT standards. That's one of the requirements. We also have the police is involved in terms of monitoring the area. They usually have a cop there when the road is closed. In terms of putting signs up ahead, it's sort of like a catch-22 because some residents can use the detours as they're, labeled, and others could benefit by using others. If you channel people through one particular, say, a block prior to where the work is being performed, the people that could use that block to get to their home are going to think that they're going to have to go around this whole area and then make it worse for them. So it works sort of like, it's like on a case-by-case, depending on where you're going as to whether the sign is adequate for your direction or not. And if we do put these signs up ahead, you get into the issues where, why are you making me turn here when I could have made it by just continuing straight on the road the way it was?
And I agree with what you're saying. I guess what I was more or less looking at was some sort of sign that says there is a detour ahead, not detour and turn here. So I agree totally with what you're saying. And
I'll look at the signage the way it is out there, and we'll make a determination. If we need to, we'll ask for additional signage.
Well, let's just take a look. Let's just take a look at it, because there is a considerable amount of inconvenience, and we're going to see more of it over time, and we're going to see less. So if we could take a look at it, maybe design a better mousetrap, it might, help us in the future.
You're correct.
So that's all I had, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Councilman Waldman?
Julio, don't leave, because I'm not done with these roads. My phone started at 7:30 this morning, and let me tell you what the problem is. It's like detour du jour. You never know what the soup of the day, you don't know the detour of the day. I myself, I'm going to give you a quick little rendition of my life today. I left for a meeting at Capri Restaurant, and I went out, decided, okay, I can't go that way. Then I tried to go right, got down to Farm Life, thought I could make a left. Instead, I had to go all the way down by the stadium, come back up Palm Drive. And then to get home, I thought, well, okay, that was open before, so I can go down to Tennessee, make a right-hand turn, and get into the villages. Oh, no. I ended up all the way on 8th Street, all the way down to Keys Gate entrance, Alex Mutzo Boulevard, and then all the way back down North Canal. So, nobody knows better than me, folks. And I'm not going to say any names, but I had several phone calls today. One lady missed a doctor's appointment. One gentleman was an hour late for work. Now, we've got to do something. And, I'm suggesting that if we do know of these things, that we could at least put notices in the village newsletter. The Lakeshore has, I believe, a newsletter that goes out. All the folks want to know is just communicate. We just have to have communication. And the last thing I'm going to complain about is that when you do detour through the village as a homestead, do you know that there are no detour signs telling them how to get out of the village as a homestead? And they drive around, and it's all bird names, and so you can't go by Southwest 1st Street or 2nd Street, and the birds aren't even in alphabetical order. So it's like, I'll stop and I'll say, are you lost? And they say, yes. And I say, well, you need to go down to, Field Lark, or you need to go here. And they go, where the heck is that? We're just trying to get to the outlet mall, or we're trying to get, to Key Largo or whatever. So I compliment, though, I don't know who was in charge when you had the road closure on Tennessee, and you were detouring them through, I think it's Homestead Gardens, that little subdivision there outside of the village as a homestead. You had little signs on every corner, detour, detour. It was very simple. You got them right back out on Tennessee. But you're taking them into the villages, and those poor folks are literally driving around and around and around and around, and they don't know how to get out. So we got to help them. And if there's something that we can do as a community, just maybe do some more press releases, maybe do the letters in the newspapers. We need to do something. Now, I realize it's DOT, but these are our citizens. And it's my phone that's ringing, so we need to help them. And it's me who's out there trying to direct them as to how to get out of there. So it's a maze.
We'll look at it with the police department to make sure that we have adequate directions, and I know today was a very trying day.
Awful.
There were two closures at the same time, which really shouldn't happen, and we'll make sure it doesn't happen again.
And the lady that missed her doctor's appointment, I'm sure she's going to have to wait another month or two to get another doctor's appointment. And the gentleman who was an hour late to work, hopefully his employer will understand that. But it's a serious issue, and I'm quite concerned, especially as we continue to have these road construction things going on. Okay, thank you.
You have my insurance.
Thank you. Okay, and I'm going to be real quick here since I've taken my time to preach about the roads. But I just wanted to announce that we are going to have the Atlantic League back. I'll talk more about that at another time. It's going to be April 10th through the 16th. And for those of you who are already making your Easter plans, we have an Easter party that we're going to do similar to the Christmas party for the children. It's going to be at Harris Field. It's going to start at 12 o'clock, March 19th, and it's $5 per child, and this includes a hot dog, chips, drink, face painting. There's going to be a wildlife animal show, and I'll give you more information on that as well. But I just wanted you to know ahead of time so that you can start making plans for your children and know that we are going to have a wonderful party for them. Beautification Committee met and had a wonderful meeting. We've decided to divide the committees, the tourism and the beautification, because there's just so many issues and so many people that want to belong. So we had our first beautification meeting. It was absolutely great. We have a lot of plans. I'll be bringing all those plans forth to a committee the whole meeting. We're going to be cleaning up our city, street by street, sidewalk by sidewalk, but we're going to clean up our city. And you all know that that's been something that's been really dear to me for a long time. So now we have a committee, and if you're interested in joining that beautification committee, feel free to give Patty a call at City Hall, and we'll let you know when the meetings are going to be happening. Mayor, I'd also like to say that I've met with our Parks and Recs department. I met with the director of Parks and Recs for Dade County about the baseball stadium and the repairs that needs to be made. Their recommendation is that we have an outside engineering firm go in there and tell us exactly what it is that's wrong with it, what needs to be done, etc. I'd like to have that put on a committee, the whole meeting, so that we can get that study going. The director of Parks and Recs for Dade County, we gave her a tour of it. She feels that we have some very serious issues, safety issues. And I know Mr. Taylor, who's with OSHA, he and I are going to meet, and I'm going to have him also go out and, you volunteered? No, Mike, don't you? I do. We're going to go out and look at it as well, as he was out there for many, many years and knows that stadium probably as well as anyone. But I wanted to bring in the Sports Commission and also Dade County Parks and Recs, and I have done so, and we are going to form a little task group and evaluate the results after the reports come back, Mayor.
Any update on the regional park at the base?
Yes, I am going to be working with them. Most of their plans, to my recollection, they said, and Ronnie, you can tell me if I'm wrong, I believe they said that most of their plans had already been made. That money is coming from the bond issue. They're waiting for that money to be released. It's going to be quite beautiful. I mean, they're planning lots and lots of activities, soccer fields, all kinds of things. Did I give the correct information, Marlene?
Yes, that's correct. They were going to give us some drawings and timelines when they expect to or hope to get the GOB dollars.
And I'll report back to you on that as as we progress with that. But we are working with Dade County Parks now. We're forming a partnership with them. I was quite surprised. It was Dade County that called me and wanted to meet with us about the stadium. And I think one of the reasons for that is that a lot of us forget, and I say a lot of us mean the community, we forget that stadium was built with all of Dade County tax dollars. That's not just Homestead dollars. That was Dade County tax dollars. And that was in 1989, before the ACUS of 1992. So there's a lot of issues here. It's not going to go away. We're going to have to address it because we do have a safety issue. And we do need to, if there are repairs that need to be done, then we need to address that. Other than that, Mayor, I'll just thank you, Vice Mayor, for bringing all those events to our attention. And the chili cook-off terrific. I tasted every single chili, usually, sometimes twice, and it was just great. I believe I belong to the chamber as well, but my business does, but I think we exceeded our expectations just many, many times. And Bob Farnes was the chairman on that, and I give him a lot of credit because he's had a couple of tough months these past months, and he just came forth and did a great job. And the outhouse race, Kai's won. Little Angels lost. Kai's won. But next year I'm going to be back in my outhouse, and next year we're hiring an engineer to make our outhouse. So we're going to be in there. We're going to be running.
We made 30% more this year than ever before.
30% more. Sue Newman, our chairman of our chamber, said that we made this year, so I'm very proud of that. The Little Angels Casino Night is March 12th at Keys Gate Country Club. I'll be talking about that more too, so keep that in the back of your head. Thanks. And the Rotary food was great. I know you cooked it, Steve, but it was really great.
I served.
You served, that's right. But the meat was delicious. Thank you.
The Homestead baseball?
Excuse me?
Saturday?
Oh, our event, yes. Well, Vice Mayor mentioned that we kicked off the J.D. Red Little League season on Saturday. And it was so wonderful because those folks are really nice folks, and those kids, I think there's over 400 kids. I didn't bring my notes, but I think there's over 400 kids in that program. And last year I was in the hospital and I wasn't able to be there for their opening day, and they sent me some beautiful plants, and believe it or not, God must be looking down because I kill everything, and those plants are still living. So they sent those plants to me so that I could be a part of their opening day last year, and I was so thrilled to be able to be there with them this year. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Woolman. Under my business is to announce the vacancy, 2 vacancies on the Historic Preservation Board, and I let the community know of anyone that is interested in serving on the Historic Preservation Board to submit your resume to the clerk's office or to Patty Sullivan for an appointment. And secondly, Elena, could you just give us an update on the audit, where we are, and when you think we get a preliminary report?
Mayor, members of council, staff, and residents, the auditors have been on site. They were here today. I thought they would be gone on Friday, but they were here today. And we had some preliminary discussions about a draft. We expect to have a draft on next Monday for your review. And it's what I see so far is very favorable. I don't want to say anything yet until it's in writing, but it's a very favorable report. I think you're going to be very pleased. So we're basically in the financial presentation mode. They have completed their field work, and everything that's come to my attention is looking very good for the city.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any public comments at this time? Any public comments at this time? Yes, any public comments at this time?
I'm going to try to be brief. I know it's after 10 o'clock, and we appreciate you guys' patience.
We need your name again for the record, please.
Lana Horde, 2141 Northeast 38 Road, Waterstone, Homestead, Florida. I want to start with some good news because we don't often show up in mass like this with a lot of good news. And I want to say and echo what Councilman Bell said about the responsiveness of the City Council here. I've been a member of many small towns. I've been a constituent in some large cities, and rarely do we see the responsiveness. We do appreciate the fact that your doors are open, that your phones are available to us, and that you're willing to listen to us. We thank you very much for that. I also wanted to say a special thank you to the police department here, because the police department has gone above and beyond the call of duty in trying to cover the extra patrols that have been necessary in the Waterstone area. We had a rash of burglaries over the Christmas holidays, and the police were on top of it like this. They put extra reserve officers out there. They even had undercover officers, and the burglaries were
I don't know if they actually apprehended the suspects during the time, but we did see a huge decrease in the break-ins that were happening at that time, and we feel it was completely a result of the police being there and showing their presence. For the first time in my life, I had a little slip of paper on my door that said, "We are the Homestead Police Department. We just want you to know that we checked your property over the holidays and that we're watching this area." I mean, you can't get better than that. That was awesome. And I know that the reserve people that were up here tonight are the biggest reason why you guys are able to do that. In addition to that, the police have also redistricted into District 1 and District 2, which is going to significantly reduce the response time for them to be able to get out there when they have a call. That's a huge step in the right direction. We really appreciate being proactive about that. And it's our hope that in the next year that we will be able to have some sort of substation out there in that neighborhood so that the police will have a place, a home base per se, for the I think it's District 2 is east of the highway and District 1 is west. But so that the District 2 police officers will have a home base out there. And it's also our hope that in the next year, and one of our other community members will talk more extensively about this, but that we would be able to bring those other 9 police officers online that we originally had in the budget, and that's been put off till July, because these guys are, I mean, I've spoken with them individually, and the reserves are out there, and we're taxing that resource about as far as we can tax it, and you desperately need these guys on board. Some of these great guys that were standing up here, they need to be offered some full-time jobs. So we hope that you guys will be able to do that in the next 6 to 8 months, or as quickly as possible, and free up some of that budget money to do that, to give some of the others a relief. One of the main reasons that our Waterstone community showed up here tonight was not about the things that we've already talked about. It was because we had an incident this last week where we had been picketing the last couple of weeks in front of the Lennar sales office on the sidewalk at Southwest 137th Avenue. We had been picketing to make sure that any new buyers in the area are fully aware of the taxes before they buy the homes. We want people to buy the homes. We want the people in the homes that can afford to pay the taxes for the homes. As of this weekend, MLS had over 137 listings, agent listings on MLS, for homes in the Waterstone community. That doesn't even count the buyer, the for sale by owner, the FSBOs out there. That's almost 10% of what's developed so far in Phase 1, because there's only like 1,050 homes in Phase 1. So it's already above the curve on what's being turned over out there. We know from feedback from our homeowners that people are selling out before foreclosure because they realize they're not going to be able to meet their tax burden, which is better than foreclosure. But in the long term, foreclosure will become more of a direct threat if these properties don't move, and the clock's ticking. And it takes a while for foreclosure to happen, but we're just wanting to make sure we get the right people in those homes that can afford to pay those taxes. So our goal has been buyer beware, and we're doing an informational campaign. We're simply letting people know that they're in a triple tax district, that they're concentric circles of Dade County Unincorporated, City of Homestead, and Special Taxing District of Community Development District. We're also letting them know what the exact taxes should be on their home based on the millage rate calculators from the Tax Assessor Collector's website. The response we have had has been, for the most part, about 7 out of every 10 cars or people that stop to talk with us have said to us, "Thank you so much for letting us know this. I'm glad you told us because we need to take this into account. We're moving from Kendall, we're moving from Miramar, we're moving from Coconut Grove. We needed to know this. I'm glad you told us this." With that in mind, we had spoken in December and then again in January with business licensing, because when we decided we were going to picket and do this informational campaign, we wanted to make sure we dotted our I's and crossed our T's and did everything we needed to do in case permits were required, et cetera, et cetera. So one of our homeowners talked in December with Kathy Milford, who was very helpful in the business licensing office, and then I personally went in and spoke with Kathy about 3 weeks ago. In December, we were told, one of our homeowners, Deanne Fry, was told that we were not required to have a permit because we are under, in the definition of demonstrators and parades, which are required to have permits under Section 2 of the Code, it says no portion of this article shall apply to picketing. So based on that disclaimer, we were told you don't need a permit, we just ask that you're peaceable, that you not block pedestrian or vehicular traffic, and they gave us some guidelines to go by, as far as what can be done and what can't be done. You can hand out handbills from a human hand to a human hand. You can't leave them on the ground. You can't put them on inanimate objects. So we got the whole briefing because we were committed to doing this in the proper way because we didn't want any additional burden put on our police officers. With that in mind, we went the first Sunday or second Sunday in January to picket that Sunday afternoon, and we were told at that time that we had to have a permit. I spoke there at that point with Officer Mally Graham, who's also been very helpful in code enforcement, or she's, I think, sergeant for the code enforcement section. And she said, you have to have a permit. I said, well, we don't, but I can't tell you who the lady was that they talked to there because Deanne went and I didn't go. And she said, well, you know what, just go talk to him this week, get it straightened out, and next week everything will be cool. Just, have them tell me something or call me or bring something. So I talked to Kathy that week on Tuesday. She confirmed you don't need a permit. You just have to follow the rules. I said, well, that's no problem. We want to do that. And she said, take this part of the code. She highlighted the section that said no part of this code article shall apply to picketing, put her card on it and also Charles LaProd's card. She said, just give this to Officer Graham or whoever the detail is at that point. Let them know that you talked to us and that we interpret it this way. So for 2 weeks we had no problems in the picketing efforts, and the police were very helpful. There was nothing adversarial about the incidents in any way. We did have some problems with some cars pulling into that turning lane at Waterstone and stopping, trying to talk with us, and we kept telling them, go on down to the Spine Road, pull in, please. We have people down there to talk to you, because we didn't want them stopping and getting hit in the behind by somebody else who was looking this way and not paying attention. So we worked out a lot of those pragmatic details so that we still had a chance to talk with people. And we're surprised to find on last Friday afternoon we got a phone call from one of our leaders, Shirley Zambrano, had a phone call from Kathy saying that the city has decided that you do qualify as demonstrators, so you will be required to get a permit in order to picket this weekend. At 4:30 in the afternoon, there was no way we could comply with that. And in response, we also told Kathy, I said, the article is very clear. It says that this shall not apply to picketing. So we believe that if you require us to get a permit, it's a violation of our First Amendment rights. I don't know if you guys are aware or not of what your code says, but it does have some pretty strong language about indemnification, requiring some general liability policies if you're defined as a demonstrator, to make it so much so that it's a barrier to free speech if you consider picketers demonstrators and you make them go through that process. So with that in mind, we told them we do believe this is a violation of our First Amendment rights. We don't want problems, but we will be there at 12 o'clock tomorrow demonstrating, or if you, as you call it, demonstrating with 3 or more, as the code defines a demonstration. And if we receive a warning officially, then we'll disperse peacefully. But this is a violation of our First Amendment freedoms. So we did assemble that afternoon. There was probably maybe 10 or 12 of us. And we didn't want any trouble. I mean, we even had our kids out there. I mean, that's been the norm. It's like a family affair, when we do these things. And Officer Mally Graham was also the detail that day, and she came out and she said, well, I've been told you have to have a permit now. I said, well, we understand we don't. We had spoken with our attorney that is handling our suit against the developer, and he said, just make sure you get it on tape. You need something official, because if they're going to act in this manner, you have to have some kind of documentation to play out the drama to show that something needs to be done about it. So we did get it on videotape and on audio tape. It was not adversarial in any way, and we still consider a relationship with Officer Graham to be wonderful. She's been very helpful, but basically she's just doing her job, what she was told to interpret the code as needing a permit. So we did agree to disperse peacefully, and as of this morning, we had contact with the American Civil Liberties Union, who did confirm that the code as it appears now is in violation of First Amendment freedoms. There's a case that I have that I can submit for documentation for the record, and I believe that Randall Marshall of the ACLU spoke with Mr. Weiss this afternoon, late in the afternoon, because the letter didn't go through till about 4:30, confirming this, but a very similar ordinance in Augusta, Georgia was struck down because it basically defined the requirement of demonstration and the need for a permit was it didn't meet what's called the content neutral clause. And the code very clearly says that certain contents and conversations between 3 or more people require a permit, and other contents of conversations between 3 or more people, it's implied, do not. In layman's terms, if I decided to stand on a sidewalk with Ms. Garner and Ms. Waldman and talk about chess in the afternoon and our chess club meeting that's coming up next week, based on the way the code's written, we would be required to get a permit as demonstrators. In reality, what is happening in the application of the code as it is that because the content of our conversation is over something controversial, social, or political, then we are now classified as demonstrators and need a permit. So the 11th Circuit Court struck that down, and we wanted to make you aware also of that case law precedent and ask one of two things. Our main concern is that we be allowed to picket without the egregious burden of going through the whole indemnification process that permitting requires. It wasn't our intent to throw a wrench into the ordinance that you have at hand right now. We just want the freedom preferably to be just considered picketers, which is what the article says. None of this article applies to picketers. And we just want to be free to do our picketing because we don't want to cause a problem. But
let me have the attorney to respond to you.
Sure.
Because we certainly want to allow you to have that right, so let's just find a way to make it happen. Mr. Weiss?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I did have a conversation with the attorney for the ACLU. We've dealt with him before in other cities and circumstances where you have an ordinance on the books that was written who knows when, is never really used or really called into question, and then somebody enforces it in good faith, and then you sort of have to look at it in light of new case law. So I told him that I would work with the manager's office, gather the facts of what happened. We would look at the, I haven't seen it, but apparently he wrote a fairly strong letter to the city, told me that, had we been involved, he didn't think he would really write that letter because we had a similar situation in one of our other cities and we worked it out. He said, so he knows that we're going to look at it fairly. And so we will do that along with the manager's office to find out, to look at the legality of the ordinance, and if it's, if there's a problem with it, we're going to come back to you and tell you that it's time to change the ordinance, as we've done many times, and I know that you will. If there's a problem with the way it's being enforced, we'll work with staff to make sure that it's enforced in a legal way, and we'll do it quickly. And I told Mr. Marshall I would get back to him, and I will.
So, when is your next scheduled to picket?
We've scheduled to picket each weekend from about 12 to 5 in front of the Lennar's sales office, although we are going to be expanding that to include the Lowell Home Sales Office, the Caribe Home Sales Office. So also one of the things we wanted to ask you is...
So that's Saturday and Sunday?
Saturdays and Sundays. Okay. And on the, keep in mind on Southwest 137th, which is the main road, there's clear sidewalks. On Campbell Drive, where the other two sales offices are located, there are no clear sidewalks because all of that's still under construction. So we wanted to clarify as well, we felt like for safety's sake, the only place that we could probably picket and make sure that we wouldn't be at risk of obstructing traffic or causing problems with traffic is maybe on the southern side of Campbell Drive, where there's a grassy area and then there's like a pathway. It looks sort of like a sidewalk, but nothing's been poured. But it's obviously where people walk because the other side is totally torn up and there's no curbs or anything, so there's no really way to tell where the street ends and where the right-of-way begins. So we also wanted to ask you if in the meantime, while we have these schedules coming up, as this issue is being determined, can we continue to be under the the picketing definition of that article and be exempt from this permit requirement. And then also, when it comes down to the question on Campbell Drive, because there are no sidewalks poured, we wanted you to make some kind of ruling saying that that's still okay as long as we maintain safety. And we've tried to do as much as we can to maintain safety. We're wearing bright yellow T-shirts. We're trying to make sure everybody does that.
We'll make all that part of the discussion that you and whomever your representative can have with the city attorney and the city manager's office. And let's just try and get it done before this weekend so you can continue to do what you're doing.
Right, we'll commit to have our work done and way before the weekend, and then we'll work with the manager's office, and if there's some logistics that need to be worked out, because I mean clearly the city has no interest in violating anybody's rights, and if it was done, it was certainly done by somebody that was well-meaning and reading the code as they read it. But by the same token, we are able to respond quickly, and we will, we're already looking at the issue. We're aware of those cases, and we have a good relationship with the ACLU, and we'll do our best to try to have it taken care of by the weekend.
Thank you very much. Mr. Marshall expressed the same to me about 4:30 this afternoon when he said he was pleasantly delighted to find that you were representing the city in this matter, and you had a good track record of being very responsive. So thank you very much for that. We had also wanted to ask and bring to your attention, just in general, I don't know if you are even aware of this at this level, because many of these interlocal agreements that created our CDD were passed back in 2001, and some of you weren't on the council at that time, but the interlocal agreements that the county passed and that the city of Homestead signed off on had very clear disclosure statements in them. The copy that I submitted into the record earlier, section 14 of that copy, says that they basically make the promise that we will make sure everybody knows what taxes they have to pay, that they get some kind of good faith estimate, and that they'll be aware of all the assessments. Statute 190 as it stands now is not toothy enough to keep the developers in line. There is not even an administrative review body at the state level to report violations to. That is something that two representatives in northern Florida have tried to get reformed over the last 2 years, the entire statute, because basically it was written by real estate lobbyists, and when there are violations of it, the remedy that the law allows is simply rescission of contract. There are no hand-slap remedies within that statute when that happens. So as a result, we feel that in order to protect the consumers, not just the ones that are here in your constituency now, but the many that will be coming this direction as more CDDs are created, that it would be in the city's best interest to pass some local ordinances that require compliance for disclosure. And if disclosure is not made, we would recommend that you use some language. There's some specific disclosure languages that make sure that they get full disclosure. There are some specific steps that other cities have taken to make sure this happens. And there's a way to do it so that you could make it contingent upon your agreement with an interlocal, that they have to attach this statement that says X, Y, and Z for every single purchaser prior to the execution of a sales contract. And that way, if it doesn't happen, you would also make as part of that ordinance the idea that there would be fines that would be hefty enough per each infringement that you can show your constituency that you're doing the best thing you can do. You're watchdogging this as closely as you can because your constituency needs that protection. The consumer protection that's in Statute 190 is pathetic. It's just pathetic. I've spoken with people at Tallahassee. I've spoken with a number of them who said, we gripe all the time, saying all we do is get these phone calls from people saying their CDD's not doing what it's supposed to do, or the developer didn't do the right thing when disclosing the CDD, and we don't even know who to tell them to call, because it's not our office, but there's not another office to do it. So right now, oversight for CDDs is completely under the Office of Inspector General's office, which does a hodgepodge of many different things, and oversight is not very significant. Basically, they review financial statements every September 30th, and if they're not in compliance, then they can offer them technical assistance, but they don't have any sticks. All they have is carrots in order to get them to do a better job at managing the finances. So we would ask you to try to, bring this into the committee of the whole or whatever process that you guys feel is the most responsive to deal with it. But we would ask that you put some ordinance on the books that protects people from the lack of disclosure, because there are quite a few more CDDs coming this way. You've already approved some, and there will continue to be more. We were not aware tonight that the proclamation was going to be awarded to the developers, the 4 developers that developed the Waterstone community. So it was kind of a comedy of errors that all happened to fall on the same night that we brought this, what was intended to be a First Amendment issue to your attention, so that we could get some resolution of that. But probably disappointment in that action would probably be a very light way of putting the way we feel. I can remember in high school not getting invited to the prom. I can remember being the last girl. I can remember going alone. I was very aware that I was not anybody's first choice. Homestead, 5 years ago, when you were going bankrupt, you were not the developer's first choice for a prom date. When you needed their help, they were building in West Kendall. They finally asked you out to the dance when they ran out of land and they didn't have anywhere else to build. When they were pushing up against the edge of the urban development boundary in West Kendall, then they decided that they would come down here and ask you to dance. And part of the reason they waited to ask you to dance is because you're a tough sell. You make it harder for them to do what they're doing, as the proceedings of tonight evidence. You make sure that you want 60 feet and not 56 on those 4 lanes. You make sure that you're looking at the traffic flow. You make sure that the water mains are in the ground before 2,000 people move in, and you don't have to tear up major arteries in order to put them in after the fact. So part of the reason you weren't invited to the prom earlier was because you're tough. You're not easy. We're glad that you're not easy, but we want you to recognize also that there aren't many other people they can ask to the prom at this point. You guys are the ones holding the land. And if they want to develop it, they've got to come through you to do it. We just want you to be as judicious as possible to make sure that they can't take advantage of their developing rights. We want them to be able to develop. We want the city of Homestead to be able to increase its tax base. But we want to make sure that you choose developers that are very responsible. In the case of Lennar Homes, Caribe Homes, Lowell Homes, and Prime Homes, they broke interlocal agreements when they built Waterstone and failed to disclose to over 1,150 homes in Phase 1 and 1,215 homes in Phase 2. The tax base that comes from Phase 1 will be approximately $1.8 million, using a very conservative estimate of about $185,000 per home market value at your current 7.75 millage rate. Your tax revenue for 03-04 was $6.8 million. $1.8 million from Phase 1 in Waterstone is 25% of what your budget was last year in tax revenues. When Phase 2 comes in, those 1,200 homes, that's going to be another $2.1 million in tax revenue at the same conservative estimate of $185,000 per home, which there is not a home out there right now that's selling pre-construction for less than $225,000, including the townhomes and villas. So believe me, it is a conservative estimate. When that comes in at that point, using 2003-04 figures, you're talking about 53% of the budget of your tax revenues is coming from one planned unit development.
Okay. We have some other speakers. Are you?
Sure, I'm done.
Okay.
I just wanted you to be aware of the gravity of the situation. And the angry homeowners that you saw here back in November and December were mainly from the Lennar homes, because they moved in first and those people got their tax bills first. Now we're seeing all the Caribe homeowners and all the Portofino homeowners and all the Lowell homeowners. And even though Lennar did a poor job of disclosing to us, of the 4 developers, they did the best job. The other 3's job at disclosure was absolutely pathetic. And I've reviewed many of the documents from those. And it's just now the wave is moving through those developments. So it is just the beginning of that. And we want to ask you to please do what you can to put an ordinance on the books so that they cannot fail to disclose And we want that ordinance to include disclosure about the tax district and the actual taxes that they would have to pay if they moved into those homes, so that we have people buying the homes that can afford them.
Thank you.
Let me say something in reference to the police department and some of the issues that were just brought forward. There is no one on this council that is willing to wait for July or next year for any additional police officers. On our committee meeting, the next committee of the whole meeting, which I think is the 15th, the manager has on his desk a very hard worked on program that maybe you guys have heard from the police officers what may be being looked at. But I can guarantee you that this council has not sat back and is not going to wait, and to the contrary has done everything but push the chief and the police department and the manager to the point of this is coming out. This will be on the next committee meeting, and is substantial improvement above what you've probably been told. And it's a step. It's a step in a direction, and we all know that this is not going to fix the problems, but we have got to start somewhere, and be aware of this. This council understands what's going on out there, and as fast as we can get it done, we will get it done. And there will be other dialogue just right behind this dialogue that talks about additional need for services to be rendered citywide. And we know we've got problems with getting east to west, and that is part of the discussion, is a substation of some sort, a community policing version of something. We even have kicked around possibly doing some customer service out there. But look, it's definitely in the mill. I know that Mr. Lostner has been in contact with utilities to look at some initiatives that could get a footprint out there for customer service. So we know what's going on, and trust me, it is not going to be a July next year's budget fix. This is going to be on the next meeting, and I can guarantee you that I don't think there's going to be a lot of concern from the council up here about working with this program. So if you want to see it, it'll be out on the 14th, if you're not going to be stuck in Valentine's Day.
Thank you guys very much.
Serious.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Give us your name and address for the record.
Mary Beth Leathers, it's 2110 Northeast 37th Terrace. You pretty much, Councilman Porter, started talking about what I was going to talk to you about. I'm one of the representatives of Portofino Bay, and as a community, our community has had the most crime in all of the communities of Waterstone. We're looking at break-ins, home invasions, almost happening weekly to 2 or 3 times a week. We've had a lot of problems with people getting burglarized before they even get into their house, held up. And as a community, we really, really, really want to stand behind our police department and what we need to do as a community to help you guys and to hire more police officers before, you know, as we're scared sometimes to even go home, and this is such a beautiful community that we don't want to feel that way. So we just wanted to stand as a community and ask what we could do to help you guys to make this happen sooner.
Well, thank you very much. And Councilman Porter, our leader in terms of public safety, chairs our public safety committee, and I think it's on Tuesday the 15th of February. The 15th?
I don't know.
Tuesday the 15th.
It's the 15th.
Is that correct,
Yes,
Mr. Manager?
Monday's the 14th.
He will be bringing forward a comprehensive plan to address your issue. So if you're available on the 15th, the meeting will start at 5:30. We welcome your input, because he will be presenting that plan to address those very same issues. It will be here. Yes, ma'am.
There.
So we have a plan. We want to share it with you on the 15th.
There.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you. we all share your concerns about the crime, and we've received lots of emails and responded. And one of the things I highly recommend, if you don't have already, I believe a lot of the crime, and I've had a lot of discussions with the police department and taking a look at it, and I got a statistical breakdown of the crime, where it's happening, and pretty much the times and everything. And on that statistical breakdown, I believe that the crime is coming from right within the community. So, right. So what I'm saying is, most of that is being rented out, is rental properties. So what I'm agreeing with you. So what I'm saying is, you really need to have, since you're representing your community, each community needs to have a strict homeowners association, where your homeowners association agrees to take a look at each and every person that's moving in. I know after Andrew, when I was in Broward County for 3 months, I had to go before the Homeowners Association board to get approved to move into a townhouse. Yes. It was that strict, and I think I paid $50 for a background check on myself. So I would highly recommend, the way to stop a lot of this is through your Homeowners Association. Make sure that it's in your Homeowners Association documents that you have the right to do a background check on the tenants that are moving in through the Homeowners Association, and I promise you that will eliminate probably 70 or 80% of the problems that are happening. And one other thing, if you discover that any of the crimes that are taking place on people that are any type of assistance, whether it's a Section 8 home or whether it's whatever, you need to report it to whether it's the Homestead Housing Authority or the Corway office, because if there's crimes being committed from a particular home and it can be verified, they can be removed from their assistance and have to leave that particular area. So I've done my homework on this, so I really would strenuously, and I'd be happy to talk to you some more about that.
Right, well, Councilwoman, that is wonderful, and we as a community would love that. Unfortunately, our community is still governed by the developer, and he will not let us do that. And he did not provide provision in our board association rules for a renters committee. We have been asking him for a renters committee for months now. We've been explaining to him the problems. We've been going to him. We don't even have FP&L lights because MassTech did not put them in yet. I went to the developer. He said, it's not my concern. You need to call.
Excuse me just for a second. Under my official watch, it is 10:30, and so you need to move to extend the meeting. That is not the official watch, because then we'd be late doing this. So my official watch says it's 10:30, so we need a motion, please.
The Vice Mayor move that we extend the meeting?
I move that we extend the meeting for those that remain standing.
Probably move in second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And so to the presenters, I'm going to have to limit your time, because we typically supposed to close at 10:30. So could you limit your response, and we'll have that committee of the whole, and we'll talk more about your public safety.
Yes, I'll make it really quick. If we had that provisions implemented and we could do that work and have a renters committee, which is what we absolutely want and we've been begging for, we would be doing it. But we were told no. You cannot do it until we turn over the board, so we're stuck. We can't police ourselves, we can't help ourselves, and we can only rely on the police department, who's very, very overtaxed. You know, the response time to us is hard, you know, coming from the west. Getting over to the east side is very difficult. It's a huge community. It's a new development where people are getting lost coming in, and we can't get anything done. So it's very scary, because we're in a rock and a hard place right now. We keep asking the developer ignores us. You know, we're asking for the lights to be fixed. We're in a community right now where it gets dark at 5:30. There's kids out playing. There's people coming down the street, and we have no street lights. And it's taken us 2 months to have FP&L even acknowledge us that we've had no street lights. And what it turns out is MassTech didn't do the underground wiring. So now we're going to have to wait another month to 2 months to get wiring in before we can even get street lights. And now we're in developments that are houses that are not living in, and it's an easy area to target for crime. And that's what we're up against. So that's why we're really trying to push for a police department. Thank you.
Councilwoman Woman?
Yes, I just want, if you could just stay there just for a second. I think maybe I give you a little bit of good news tonight. First of all, I'm a realtor, so no one knows better than I do what your problems are out there. And that 137 MLS listings, that didn't include all the rentals that are on there, which there's 20, 30 every couple of days. I mean, Sue's sitting over there, we both know, everybody knows it's in real estate, and it's a nightmare. And it's bringing your values. Your values are a certain point right now, but it will eventually bring your values down if we don't fix this. So I'm going to share a little bit of good news with you, and that is that we have an old ordinance, and Charles, I'm going to look at you for this, on the books that says, well, first of all, let me just go back 1 second. You know that a lot of people went in there and bought 8, 9 houses, 10 houses as investors. Well, we have an old ordinance on the books that we're in the process of bringing it public if we haven't already done so, and that says that if you own more than 2 houses, then you're a dealer and you have to have a, is it a permit or business license?
It's a business license.
A business license in order to do that. And every single one of those people that own more than 2 houses in your area will be receiving a letter, and if they don't comply with it, then they're going to have to answer to the city. So we are working on things. You know, I know that, you know, it's not always in the press, it's not always out there, because a lot of times we want to make sure that we have everything done and all the I's dotted and the T's crossed, you know, before we bring it forward. But I want you to realize that we are addressing that. And the crime, I have friends that live there, and as a realtor, I understand, because that's the first thing now. People are wanting to know your crime report. They're wanting to know your crime statistics, and it's very difficult. So, and you don't want to see foreclosures. So, no. So anyway, that should help a little, because they're going to have to pay fines. They're going to be in trouble. You know, we're going to make sure that it happens. So I hope, and I'd like to come and talk to you folks sometime. I know you don't have a homeowners association, but at least maybe you might have some house that you could...
Rebel Homeowners Association in Portofino Bay, which me and all the council people are invited. I personally invited Amanda Garner, and she's going to come to our meeting. It is February 19th. It's at my house, which is now on record, and now everybody can come.
Well, if you'll let me know, I'd like to. As a realtor, you know, I think maybe I'd like to hear more about it, so maybe I could do something on council.
Okay, I'll email you my location.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir, Mr. Lovin.
I want to add, too, to address that issue. You know, our staff, many of our staff people on a regular basis, well, we have a regularly scheduled meeting with the developers. And it would seem to me that the crime issue has come to the point where our staff needs to work with the developers and do what we need to do. That, you know, there's a difference between them letting go of the entire association and allowing those who are there to clear tenants.
Right.
And I'd ask staff if we can begin to do that. Certainly, you know, not only does it affect your values and quality of life, but the reality is it affects their ability to sell more houses.
Right.
And that's what makes those guys move. We all know that. So I'm going to ask staff to ask them to begin working with you to amend the home. You know, you can amend the homeowners docs to do anything that you can agree to do. I want to ask staff to begin working with them to do some amendments that allow you to have those rental, you know, the clearance committees, so that you can have some control and civility in your own neighborhoods.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone. I know you're tired, you cannot answer. I'm sorry. My name is Wilfried Presa. The reason I am coming here, I come to address to the community a new, very small radio station we have for the Spanish community. And the reason we have that, because there are too many information out, but unfortunately the farm worker, they spend all day at work. Sometimes, they get home 10, sometimes 9 p.m. So if they listen the radio, that means it's a great meeting. That means now we have someone to report that. They can say that on the air. By the time they listen to the music, and then they will be able, to know about what's going on in this community. I'm not Spanish, but I got the vision, and then that's why, I have some Spanish. I had some many Spanish people with me, but they left. They left. And we're going to have kids get involved. Okay, the reason we want them to stay away from drugs, from different things out there. And then also we have to educate the community. When I say the community, not me because I don't speak Spanish, but that's why I have some Spanish, with me. And I come, to ask your support. I believe every businessman or politician, you need the radio station down here. We always have one for Haitian, but it's a legal radio station. It's under Part 15 of FCC rules. That means, we don't have nothing, to worry. Only one thing we need was your support. Send us information. The location is 281 South Chrome Avenue, Homestead. And the phone number, I don't know. What's the phone number, Lucy? Come here.
The phone number is 786-720-2240.
Thank you. And what's frequency? The frequency, go ahead. The frequency.
Like 93.3.
RCH, South Day Community Radio, 1650 AM. And we're there 7 days a week, 24 hours a day.
In the Spanish.
We didn't hear you.
Okay. Thank you. I'm not going to be so long. Thank you, Mayor, for your support because the City Council always support me. So I just received a Martin Luther King Jr. Award. So thank you guys for your patience. I'm sorry. Thank you. Good night.
Any other public comments? Any other public comments at this time? Come forth, give us your name and address for the record.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dennis Robinson. I'm the owner of National Computer Consulting Group, Incorporated. Our office is located at 26404 Southwest 134th Avenue, Naranja, Florida. I'm just here today to let everybody know that we can save you time and money on your computer repair, networking, and website services. If you would like more information, please contact me after the meeting. Go to the website nccgi.com. Thank you. And once again, my name is Dennis Robinson with National Computer Consulting Group, Incorporated.
Thank you very much.
I wanted to make one brief announcement about schools. If there are any residents here in the Waterstone area that have not received an application for the new charter school, they did start meeting. They'll meet every Tuesday night for the next 3 weeks. And we do have some applications with us if you want to pick one up and some information about the charter school. So,
thank you. And good night, everybody. Thank you for coming out.
Mayor, you're not going to vote on the P&Z board? The P&Z? Oh, it's deferred?